All right, good morning, everybody. I know we're a touch early, but Kinger is going to come on right at 10. So I felt like we should just get it going. I could say hi and everything. At least as we wait for Michael, he'll be in a couple minutes. We'll go for about half hour, 40 minutes, or whatever. And then we'll get him out of here so we can get on to Pilates, which I believe he has at 11 today. So we got to make sure we get him to his training because, he has to play baseball this year. Wow, I just realized how much merch I have in this one shot. We got this cup that we don't even sell. We got my hoodie and my hat all in one shot here. So anyway, pretty funny. But hope everybody's doing good. Sweatshirts. Once the crew necks come in, there's a gray version that's a crew neck. Once those come in, these will pop up onto the site, and then we'll go from there. Just want to make sure what I was trying to say is clear. The invite to Discord server is broken in the channel info. Okay, I'm going to have to figure out how to fix that then. Seems like enough people have been finding the Discord, but of course we want more. We want to create even a bigger community. So maybe I'll figure that out after the show today, how to make sure the link's good and make sure everything's working properly. Anyway, as I mentioned, King will be here in a minute, so we're just waiting on him. In the meantime, maybe we could do a quick check-in on some winter ball stuff. Toros played last night. The round robin's actually all tied up right now. Wow. Okay, just need to refresh it. Interesting. All right, so let's see. Yesterday was January 13th. We're looking for our winter ball scores. Actually, first we need our winter ball standings. Hold on. Because we're in the round robin. So technically there's no standings right now, but it is tied. I saw it the other day, but let's go look at the games from last night. Toros and Escogido, friend of the program, Justin Courtney, with 5 shutty last night. 5 innings, 3 hits, no walks, 5 strikeouts. So beautiful job by JC. In the playoff round, you see Yacobonis getting in there, Geraldo, Corbett, who was the stud last year that I played with, that I'm surprised hasn't been signed yet, to be honest with you. But he's not. So anyway, this is getting tight. This team is let's see. Yeah, Toros are 8-6 in the aggregate, and so is Aguilas. So Aguilas, we mentioned, had a really good team. Escogido's way ahead. They're going to be in. But yeah, it's going to come down to an Aguilas versus Toros little pennant race here to get into the final series. So that's what we're looking at over the next several days. And then once we get to that final series, we'll definitely cover the crap out of that. Wife wants to know, Reformer or Matt? Well, we'll ask him. We'll ask him when we grab him. Oh, there he is. So let me go grab him in right now. I'll be right back. And with Mr. King, the king himself. All right, so wait a second here, folks. I shall return in one moment. All right, we are back. I am just going to do my usual, posting Mr. King into the browser here, and then we'll get this conversation going. Hope everybody's doing well. All right, there is Mr. King. Hello, welcome to the program, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you. Already, I mentioned that you had to hop over to Pilates after this. Already, question in the chat. Wife wants to know, are we talking Reformer or Matt Pilates? What are we talking today?
I guess a little bit of both. It's actually good. So I'm at my in-laws' house, and literally across the street is a Pilates instructor. She's got a studio in her basement. So we usually start on the Reformer, and then we end up on the mat, and then we do a bunch of shoulder care at the end because she knows I'm a baseball player.
I talked for years about maybe doing some Pilates. I felt like it would be really good for like my hips, my core, all sorts of important things as we rotate one direction for 8 months, and then you kind of unfuck yourself there a little bit. And also, I know Jake Arrieta, big Pilates guy, went on to win the Cy Young 2015, obviously dominated through 2016, so maybe you're onto something there.
I I totally agree with you. The hips, the shoulders, the core. I think it's a harder workout than like going to the gym and putting 400 pounds on the bar. Yeah, my Mrs. Crowder over there she rocks me over there. But it's tough because it just puts you in these different positions. It's like you got to be in perfect form to have the correct success and the soreness that I get in my core. And I did it going into 2022, which I thought was the best I've ever pitched in terms of like mechanically and stuff wise. And then kind of got away from it because I got hurt that year, and then changed the starter. So then I was like, I got to get back to it. So it's good.
So what'd you feel that year? Did you feel more under control? Did you feel like you had more like I don't know, just more consistency in your delivery because you're a little more stable, or what was kind of the feeling there that you felt like was a plus?
I felt like I could transfer the energy from the ground to release, and I've never been a guy that like at the end of a workout will just rip 10 minutes of abs or something like that. So I always felt like my core wasn't as strong as it should be. And every strength coach I've talked to is like, you're engaging your core in all these exercises. Whether you're doing deadlift or a squat, whatever, you still have to like lock in the core. But after a workout, my legs are sore, my arms are sore, whatever it is. I'm never like my abs are killing me. And I think that was like the first step in my mechanics to change, because now I could actually connect my lower half to my upper half and generate that power.
It's funny because I remember thinking like, should I be doing core? Should I be doing separate core? And for years, I was getting the same advice as you, like, oh, you're going to brace your core when you're deadlifting, et cetera, et cetera. So I ended up getting traded to the Red Sox, and they had a trainer there who basically put me on a core program. He said, no, 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 no. We're going to fix you. You're in pain. You're aging. We need to like fix all of this. So he put me on this core program that I was doing with a few other guys. We would do it pregame like literally every day. And then I just made that a part of my routine the rest of the way. And all my low back pain went away, all my hip pain went away. And I was like, man, I could have been doing this the whole time. All it took was just checking a few extra boxes every day. But yeah, I think when it comes to baseball, sometimes those filler lifts sometimes can be really important just to get all those little things firing. Because honestly, just feeling good is like kind of the number one most important metric I would say during the season is just like, do I feel okay? Do I have to like roll around for an hour before going to throw? And hopefully the answer to that is no.
And I mean, yeah, especially as a reliever, it was a different beast. But like as a starter, you got to make sure you're good every fifth day. As a reliever, it's every day. And so those little movements that get my body feeling aligned and strong were huge.
All right, so that perfect segue to my first question. So I played with you. You came up in 19. You made one appearance out of the pen, but you were a starter, right? Born and bred as a starter in college, starter through the minor leagues, and have every intention of being a starter in the big leagues. Get to the big leagues, and there's not really a lot of opportunity to start. You get a handful of starts in the bullshit 2020 season, and then the next year you do kind of start to transition a little bit into the bullpen, and you do hit the ground running and have your first huge amount of success in the bullpen. Obviously, eventually, we know you circled back around to starting, but what do you feel? What do you feel like you learned in your time in the bullpen, and how did that kind of set you up for success when you did come back around to starting again?
I always took, and I know you started a while for your beginning part of your career. I always felt like as a starter, um, I wanted to save my energy throughout 100 pitches. And I felt like I was good enough to do that in the minor leagues where I could pitch at like 75, 80% and cruise through bottom half of the order, lock in for the top half, and go from there. Um, Once I got to the big leagues, you can't cruise through any of these at bats. And I didn't realize that as a starter then. And I was throwing at 75% to try to save energy to make sure I was going to be efficient and be able to lock in the fifth, sixth, seventh inning. And it hurt me. And then when I went to the bullpen, it was like I could be max effort for however many pitches I was going. And then at the time, it was Booney would just pull me when he saw that I was done. And that was like eye opening to me of like, I got to be locked in and dialed for every pitch that I throw in the big leagues. And then I just had to figure out how to put up zeros. And it was like, as a reliever, you come in originally when I was coming in, it was like in super low leverage, but now I just needed to make sure that none of the high leverage guys came in the game. So I was putting up as many zeros as I
You
could.
got to land the plane in that situation. That's what we call that. Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly what it is. Um, And then you start to gain the trust of the manager, and now you're in these high leverage situations, and it doesn't matter how many guys you walk, it doesn't matter how many hits you give up, you just got to put up a zero. And so I think that was huge for then me transitioning back to a starter, where like I always say solo shots aren't going to hurt you, so I can give up some solo shots. But if I get into a jam, I flip that bullpen mentality on and go for the strikeout and make sure that I'm not putting up any runs.
Yeah, it's funny because when the TVs were black and white when I was coming up through the minors, we were very much encouraged to pitch to contact and to try to your point, get deep into the game. And one of the strategies that was pushed to us was, hey, don't throw all your pitches first time through the order. Just go sinker, maybe a little changeup, and then save your good stuff for later. Well, let me tell you, I had exactly one start that went well with that strategy in the minor leagues. And I remember it because it was against the Giants AAA team, and I ended up going like 8 innings. And I was like, man, maybe there's something to this. But every other time I tried to do that, and I tried to ease into a ball game, before I know it, a couple of runs were on the board, and I was in some deep trouble, and the bullpen was getting hot. So one thing that I learned, and I wish I would have known this more when I was a starter, was just figure it out later. Get them out now, and then adapt later when they adjust. Would you say that that was a similar adjustment for you?
Absolutely, and I think that I know you know that I'm big into my notebook and scouting, and my I used to literally put in sequence 1, 2, and 3 against hitters when I was in the minor leagues, and I felt like I could go to my C sequence against their 7 hole and still be able to get them out. I got up to the big leagues and now I'm in the bullpen. I'm only facing guys one time. I'm obviously going to go to my A sequence every single time. And then I started to realize when I show you my A sequence and I show you the 4 or 5 pitches that I have in one at bat, it's not like you can go back to the dugout and be like, oh, I saw all 5 pitches. I got them. It's like, damn, this guy's got 5 pitches that can get me out. What do I sit on? What do I now get back to? And then to me, it felt like I could show as much as I want early on, see what their approach is going to be, see what their swing looks like that day, or see what pitch got them out, fooled them, or they got hit on. And now I can make that adjustment.
Yeah, in a way, it almost works the other way around in my mind. Like if you dominate them that first at bat with your A game, right, your normal sequence or whatever the way you want to pitch, it gets their attention. Now they're trying to hunt that, and now your B and C games will work because they're not on that scent anymore. They're not just going up there with a fresh see the ball, hit the ball approach. Like now they feel like they have to raise their level to meet your level. So in a way, it kind of works backwards of what those old heads were telling me back in the day. So
I
I
also
don't
think
know,
that then
man.
my scouting report became like DJ LeMahieu was one that you can't do the same sequence or even the same pitch back to back. Like he's going to make that adjustment. And then you have to find the hitters that you could throw 20 straight times the exact same pitch and he's swinging and missing 20 straight times. So like in my scouting report now is like a little DJ tab and it's like I write DJ next to an Alex Bregman name because I know that he's going to actually pay attention to how I attack hitters and how I just attacked you in the first at bat and be able to make those adjustments at bat to at
Yeah,
bat.
he's going to think along with you. He's going to try to outthink you. I used to do the same thing, try to identify him. Like for me, it was easy. Like I felt like catchers have no choice but to play the game with you. They're used to calling
Yep.
pitches. They're going to try to anticipate. So I'd always try to stay a step ahead of Buster Posey, guys like that. The guys that messed me up were the ones that could actually do it. They could actually execute a see the ball, hit the ball game plan. I know it's very hard to do in the modern era with the stuff that guys like you were throwing, but if a guy can do it, it's still pretty damn effective. So it's interesting to hear you say that. All right, I have a few questions in my Discord, so we'll get started with this one. Always love to hear from Northeast guys. Any advice for amateurs, specifically pitchers who live in cold weather states, and how you prepared for the season growing up, and even now that you're still, in the off season? What are some cold weather strategies and things that you used over the course of your lifetime training for baseball?
First thing that immediately comes to mind is one, stay athletic and play other sports. That was like I think that my athleticism totally downgraded once I became a pitcher only. So I always felt
100%.
like basketball made me a much better athlete. So I wasn't specifically focused on baseball my entire life and year. Um, but it's really just finding the right people around you. I mean, I ended up having being blessed with some great gyms that are connected to baseball facilities and finding the space to be able to throw. Um, I think that nowadays with all the technology, if you can find a TrackMan, an Edgertronic, like any type of that technology can really help you because you don't need a hitter in there, you don't need to be out on dirt, and you can just see the stuff that you're working on. But I mean, that was you were huge for me and going to the lab a few times these last 5 years ish. Um, and it was like you then get the right people around you, you have the right technology, and now you can really develop before you actually head out to spring training or for the season starting.
Yeah, there have been a huge influx of facilities popping up in cold weather places that didn't exist before. So the options are definitely there. I agree with you staying athletic though. It's tough. Once you become a PO, like
Oh,
you become a robot so fast. I mean, you're trying to repeat your delivery. Like there's an element of being consistent that requires you to do one thing over and over again at times, but it's so easy to let all that other stuff go and then you don't realize it until it's too late. And I think you should keep that mantra as you continue into your 30s, because for me it was like I felt pretty athletic. I felt like I was doing a good job through like 35, 36, and then one day I woke up and I was like, damn, like I am stiff and I don't know what happened. My spring is gone. So I started playing more like Nerf basketball in the clubhouse and stuff with the Mets. Just anything I could do. Like I'm not going to sit
yeah.
here and do the stationary games. I'm going to try to move around a little bit. It didn't work, but I tried. You know, I tried. I tried.
No, and I know it's like it's probably not a good thing to be playing pickup basketball, but like I've done it in the off season where we even just playing horse. It's like playing a different sport where you're bouncing around. You got to be light on your feet. It just makes it so then you're I don't know. Yeah, you lose a ton of athleticism being a PO.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. Next question. People talk about different sweeper grips, but maybe less about cues for throwing one. What cues were important to you when learning your sweeper shape and getting the command consistent? And it's funny because I remember a little bit of the process. You were trying to throw my grip at first, no dice, end up figuring out Kluber's grip, correct?
Yep.
And I'll let you take it from
So
there.
um yeah, and it fully it just kind of evolved from that. So I was trying to throw your grip and I just couldn't throw it hard. I was throwing it at like 72. And at the time I was still throwing mid 90s. And it's like I can't have a 25 mile an hour difference of velo. And it was kind of like big, slow, and loopy. I just couldn't figure out that grip. Kluber changed grip, but then also said, um, almost feel like you're shortening your stride to get more on top of the ball. And I didn't think about it that way because as a sweeper, I'm going to try to get my hand in the camera here. As a sweeper, you think about coming around the pitch this way,
Yeah.
but from my slot that's already down here, if I'm coming around the pitch, now I'm just like underneath the ball and then like clipping the bottom of it and just spinning it, and it's not very good. Where I actually shorten my stride, which helped me get hand on top of the ball, and it still was more on the side. But now I'm actually able to rip the like top front side of the ball and get the correct spin. And I think it depends on you got to change a bunch of grips to find what feels right, and then go to it. That was an actual slider.
Yeah,
That
I was
wasn't a
gonna say that one had more drop to it. I might have clicked on a wrong video here. It's
that
classified as
was
a slider. That's the gyro. When did
that's
you had that originally, but has that kind of circled back around as another option?
yeah. So the funny thing is that when I went back, obviously we didn't have TrackMan, or we at least didn't know about the TrackMan when I was in the minor leagues. I averaged 4 inches of arm side movement on my gyro
Oh,
slider.
so
So
you
it
had
was
a
it was
Trey Savage backup slider.
There's a backup slider the whole time. And I could command it, but it had low spin, and that really all I had was good command. So then I didn't get to fool many big league hitters with that gyro. Um, and I still don't. I only throw it probably like 7-8% of the time. So the only time I'm fooling a guy is just because it's a low percentage pitch. But I'm using it more so to get strike one, or go back foot to a lefty. Because it's I think it's easier to command the gyro than the sweeper. Whereas like the sweeper, I'm just trying to rip it middle of the plate and let it run, or whatever, let it just go off the plate. To a lefty, I don't want to hit a guy. I feel like I'm always trying to backdoor it to a lefty, so visually it's harder to land the sweeper. The gyro, I can just like think glove side and let it take off down.
Yeah, and also when you have so much movement horizontal to the left, like if you started just a hair too late out of your hand, you might clip the guy for sure. So I tried to go to that gyro a little bit at the end, but my arm slot was a little bit lower than yours. I was at 25 degrees. I'm not. Let me see what you are. You're at 27, so it's close. But either
Close.
way, I don't know. It's interesting what you said though about the sweeper being like a lot of people conceptualize it where they want to like feel like they're turning it straight this way. But for
Mhm.
me, that's not the spin that created the best angle. I had to be a little bit on top of it. Like I had to create that spin, but just a little bit nose down. That way it would catch and then it would keep it flat. So in a way, like when I would struggle, I had to like almost think slurve with it. I had to think more like be on top of it, not as on the side of it. And a lot of people ask me, because they just assume that I'm like trying to make it do that. Like, but it's like feel versus real is a little bit of a
Yeah.
different thing there. And I would be able to monitor it on Statcast. Like, let me see if I can find it real quick because it's kind of funny. But like when I would go look at like the spin, like the spin, the active, not the active spin, the spin based versus observed. For me at least, like on your sweeper, it's at 8:15 to get to 9:15. Like if I saw 8:30 on there or something, I would know I was getting under it. You know what I mean? So I would go check
On
it all the
spin
time
base.
on spin base because that's how it's coming out of your hand.
Yeah.
So I would know that, oh, like I'm spinning it a little wrong, meaning like I'm scooping under this ball a touch instead of like getting through it the way I need to. So that would be a easy thing for me to check game to game. On individual pitches, I would even look at the spin based and be like, okay, like I'm releasing it fairly true. But it's funny what you said, and it's interesting how the different grips and the cueing. Say hi, hello. Really the cueing is a huge part of it. It's like really like how you're going to get your hand to the right spot is a mental thought more so than some sort of mechanical thought. It's like a mental thought gets your hand to the right spot. So
Yep,
that's
yep, and
interesting.
now, yeah, that was my short and stride a little bit to raise arm slot, and to your point, that was the grip change that I had. Your fingers are together, correct, on that horseshoe
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
sweeper?
Yeah.
I had, and then I felt like my hand just fully got around the ball where I never had any power behind it. Spreading my fingers apart on that two seam, which is what Kluber actually kept his hands together. I then spread apart because I was able to get hand. Sorry, I keep missing the camera.
No, you're
I
good.
was able to get my hand on the side of the ball, but then my pointer finger still pronated and was able to like kick it back to the right axis and gain power. So I was still able to, like when I was coming out of the bullpen, still rip it at mid 80s.
Yeah, I've talked about that with a number of guys that we've watched. Like Jesus Luzardo is a good example. Last year, he was throwing a sweeper with like a little bit of a spike, and people are asking me why he did that. Why is he sacrificing a little bit of movement for speed? Well, I'm like, he's still getting above average movement, but he's also getting above average speed. And a big part of it is that pointer finger. Like you start to get around the ball and the middle finger ejects, but then the pointer stays on just a little bit longer. So there's a little bit more energy getting transferred into the ball. So it's
Yeah.
just a fascinating concept.
Oh yeah.
I was always thinking maximum movement all the time, but to your point, it is very hard to throw it hard when you're like barely hanging on to the side of the
When you're
ball.
on it. And so
Yeah.
I actually, when I go backdoor to a lefty, I want as much movement as possible. I want it to come out of my hand like behind where a right-handed batter would be. So I kind of just relieve pressure on my pointer finger. So then my pointer finger is kind of off the ball, and it's just middle finger taking over. So I don't have that power in making it 12 to 14 inches. It can be 20 inches and start off like as a big time ball.
Have you ever had an issue where like a couple of your pitches blended together? Like has your sweeper or has it been easy to keep your sweeper and your gyro completely separated? Or at times do you feel like, maybe sometimes it's not as easy, I guess is what I'm asking.
Sweeper and gyro were easy for me to change, like to um, differentiate. I jam the ball like way in on my sweeper. With my gyro, I'm just kind of regular grip. The hard part, and I've now figured it out, was two seam and four seam. Because and you can probably see my arm slot's totally different on my four seam. I got a good like 3-4 inches higher on my four seam, and that was actually a Chris Bassett thing. I realized I've never met him, but he was throwing fastballs and curveballs at like a foot or two different in terms of release point. Whereas, so I'm trying to throw the same four seamer from my two seam release point and getting like that terrible 13 and 13 movement profile where I can still get elite sync. I then just changed to kind of yank my left shoulder down a little bit to get more behind the ball. And then I was able to spin it more true and actually be able to carry it like 17, 18 inches.
Yeah, I remember I actually pointed out a lot. You're one of the few guys that I've seen that at times can have a plus four seam in terms of induced vertical break and a plus sinker in terms of induced vertical break. So obviously you're achieving that by moving your arm slot a little bit, but obviously you probably agree with me. I'm skeptical that the hitters can tell. I feel like it happens a little too late. And plus it's on a fastball. So it's like you don't have a lot of time to say, oh, hey, his arm slot's higher. I mean, it's already on you. So
But yeah, yeah.
I feel pretty good about that. All right. Quick questions about San Diego. Obviously, you re-signed there. Seems like that's been a pretty good fit over the past few years working with Ruben. Heard nothing but good things about him. Can you talk a little bit about the impact that Ruben's had on your career since being in San Diego and San Diego in general as a place for you and a good fit for you?
Yeah, very excited to be back there. Obviously, it was jarring going getting traded from New York to San Diego, going all probably the furthest place you could go from New York. But Ruben called me within an hour of me getting traded, and I think we had like a 2-hour phone call um, just to develop that relationship. He's converted multiple relievers to starters successfully.
Yeah,
Lugo was
Luke's.
the most recent one, and so he had confidence in me and what we could do. Um, and I honestly think that that was the main thing that I talk about Ruben is instilling confidence in his players, and he is great with pitch grips, mechanics, all that kind of stuff, and that's behind the scenes on day 1, 2, and 3. But when you're leading up to start day and on start day, it's like we're figuring out what we got that day, and we're going to put up as many zeros as possible. And knowing that we're going to get through a grinder outing and make sure that we're giving the team a chance to win, but then also knowing that on day 1 and 2, I'm going to have a sit down with them and we're going to talk exactly about what I need to change to be better for the next start. So um, he became one of my all time favorite coaches within the first couple months of me being in San Diego. It was definitely a big part of me wanting to be back there this year. Um, and yeah, so he's we got a very good pitching staff. I feel like it's always underrated coming into the season, and then we finish in the top. Obviously, our bullpen's ridiculous, and it's a very good pitching coach group over there that is fun to work with.
Yeah, I was gonna say even the other pitchers. I mean, Darvish obviously has a ton of expertise as well. Musgrove, Cease was there last year. You've had a good group. You've had a really good mix. Obviously, the bullpen's lethal and insane, but the starting mix has been probably pretty fun to bounce ideas off of each other and kind of vibe and grow as a group. I feel like that's when things are at their best. I know you had that a little bit with the Yankees, but can you speak on that a little bit with the Padres and how you guys kind of all vibe together?
Yeah, that was actually a Jameson Tyone thing that when I was with the Yankees, he huge baseball guy, loved watching baseball, and then almost immediately after a game, and he'll read the player. He'll know like if you're hot and don't want to talk about it, we'll talk tomorrow. Or if you're a guy that just wants to get stuff off your chest immediately, you can show that you're interested in what he's doing, and then you can also like immediately have feedback in terms of what to do for the next start or what to do differently or what you should have done differently in that start. And so I think that we developed a really good relationship as a unit where like Musgrove did it to me the first time I had a bad outing in San Diego. I remember going back up into the locker room and I was sitting there sulking, like trying to think about everything that I just did. And Joe comes in and sits a chair right next to me. And it's like the 6th inning of the game and talks to me through it. And it's just like, you could have done this better. This was actually really good. Continue to think about this. And I ended up just like in an hour after game time, knowing everything I needed to work on and then feeling positive going into my next outing. And that totally is what we took to this year. And Pavetta was another one that came in. And did you ever play with Pavetta? Were you
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Boston?
absolutely. Nicky P, that's my guy.
He's the best, and he's a psycho when he's pitching. But like as soon as it's over, we had a thing that he would get to chill and be in his own head for an inning, and then I'd come into the locker room and we'd talk to him for an inning, and we had this great talk to then talk about all the success that he just had, or the stuff that he could have done better, the different sequences, the different times in game where he went to his fourth best pitch instead of just ripping heaters by guys at the top of the zone. And now it's like you just can flip that switch of a bad outing or whatever it is that you just came from and now move forward. And I think that we had such a good relationship that way that our starting pitching group became really good.
Yeah, because all a baseball player really wants is something to go work on at the field. When you show up and you don't have anything to work on, that's a weird feeling because maybe you're doing good and then the complacency can kind of sneak in, or when you're completely lost and you don't know what direction to go, that's not a good place to be. But obviously when you struggle in the big leagues, it tends to create quite a bit of motivation for that next day. So it's nice if you can do a pretty quick debrief with your guys and kind of get that clear direction before you pop in the next day and kind of hit the ground running, especially when you have 4 days to kind of sit on it, sometimes
Yeah.
five in the modern game, which for me was the hardest part of starting. Obviously, you could talk about the lineups; they can build it against you and all that stuff. For me, it was the 4 days in between when after a bad outing, not knowing what to do
Oh
with
yeah.
myself, not knowing how to pace myself. So it really helps if you have a good group with good head on their shoulders to kind of be along the journey with you. I would say.
And like obviously I have nothing but good things to say about Ruben, and he actually instills this in us. It almost hits harder when it comes from another player. Like if another player's talking to you about what you could do differently as opposed to a coach, you're almost like I don't know what it is. Like when Musgrove sat me down, it was probably exactly what Ruben was going to tell me or wanted to tell me during the game. But like because it came from another player that's currently doing it,
Yeah.
it hit harder. And so we developed that really good relationship from coach to player and then player to player that made it fun.
No doubt about it. I mean, I felt it as I was a a veteran at the end. I knew that I could give the same message as Hefner, to somebody, but it would hit a little differently just because I'm, in the trenches with the boys. So there's definitely a lot of truth to that, and that's another reason to sign veteran players. Teams, they are important.
They are definitely important.
Have you had much interaction with new manager Craig Stammen?
I have. I love that guy, and I mean, I think it came to a shock to everybody, but I had no idea he was even in the running for the manager. He was a special assistant. I don't know if it was to Preller or to ownership for the last few years, and I think he was in San Diego for like 8 years leading up to that. So
Yep.
he was around clubhouse a lot, and we played golf a bunch. And he's a really good golfer. And I was pumped when I heard that and I was even more pumped because he was number 34 with the Padres, that he left 34 open. So now I don't have to buy him anything to get 34 back. So it was I think that's a great hire, and I'm really excited to see how he manages.
Yeah, no, I've always had a ton of respect from him, as a player. Obviously, being a workhorse reliever myself, he was kind of a prototype. He was throwing multiple innings. He was a part of some really good bullpens. He was always one of the guys that was the most fired up to defend his teammates in bench clearing brawls. I remember telling him to shut the fuck up one time. But I mean, he was just doing what he was supposed to do for his squad. So he's fiery, and obviously me personally, for selfish reasons, I have a lot riding on him. I need him to be very successful. I need former relief pitchers to dominate and manager roles so that that lane just continues to open up. So I'm really rooting hard for him, and I think that's pretty neat that he's been there and they identified him early and they kind of convinced him to take the job in a way, which is kind of unique situation. Very cool.
That's what I ended up hearing because I think that special assistant role is a great gig. You're only required to be at X amount of games. You can still have like a great family life. And I think that's what he's ultimately sacrificing is like, yeah, you're on the road for 80 games. You're at the field for countless hours, and he's got a bunch of young kids at home, and he had to weigh it out. And I think that he is built for it and realized that this is going to be great for him in his career. And we got a great group. So it's an easy job to take because you're already on a winning team in an awesome city with ownership and GM that is going to put out a winning team every year, and so you're kind of you're starting already ahead, and I think that it's going to be a really fun atmosphere with him.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's been a blast to watch the rise of the Padres, over the past 7, 8 years. I remember being there with the Rockies back in the day, 3 people in the ballpark. Then I go back later with the Mets and it's absolutely jammed out, singing Blink 182, and just the team's really strong and taking on the Dodgers and everybody, and it's just been really, really cool to see. Last thing before I get you out there, I made a whole video on the absurd dominance and absolutely flame throwing the entire league of Mason Miller towards the end of the year. Have you ever seen
Dude,
anything like that?
dude, it's no, I haven't. I
No.
mean, the arm speed's just insane. But he, one awesome dude off the field, hard worker. You can totally see that it's not just like obviously a lot of it's God given, but like he brings himself to the next level because of the work ethic that he puts into it. But like he's also so in control. You think of a guy that's throwing 104 and dotting, you're like, oh, he's just throwing it as hard as he can. Got lucky that it's right there. He's like understanding his mechanics in catch play. He's one of the best people to play catch with because he like thinks about how he's delivering the pitch and gets through the ball, but he's not actually ripping 100 in catch play. He can like dial it back, but then also knows right when to like step on it and go. And I no, I've never seen anything like it. His sweeper's gotten so much better. His changeup's gotten better. So now instead of a guy that's just throwing 104 with like a good slider that really is just fooling guys because it's not 104, he's got like 4+ pitches to come at you. And I have no idea how he gives up hits.
Yeah, I was
It's
I was curious if he was gonna maybe convert back because I noticed some of those changeups too. Like when I was going through, I mean, he would pick his spots because he was just literally embarrassing everybody. But the changeups were really good. Like I'm like, damn, like those are nice. And then on top of that, you kind of get numb to the 100-mile-an-hour average, But then in the postseason, he's throwing 103, 104. So there actually was another level, which I don't know. I mean, we both play with Chapman. I've played with some really hard throwers, but that's a little bit different. That's a little bit different for sure.
that bullpen last year. I know Suarez has gone to Atlanta, which is awesome for him. Another great guy. That bullpen going like Morahone, that was 99 with
Yeah.
Sink.
He was the
Mason
most
Miller.
valuable reliever in baseball last year by F4.
Oh, by far. I mean that he was the he was the guy that was bridging the gap to our Mason Miller, Robert Suarez end of the game. But like he came in bases loaded, no outs for me against the White Sox in like the sixth inning. He's that guy that can go multiples, but also a guy that I guarantee you his inherited runners scoring was super low because he just had that dog in him that knew that he was going to punch some tickets and get out of these big situations. So yeah, you got
Yeah.
99 with Sink from him, 104 from Mason, and then up to 102 from Robert Suarez. It's like
And
that's
Estrada
and
too.
Estrada throwing 100 with like
Yeah.
25 inches of ride.
And JA when he was healthy. Like it was
And
stupid for a while.
and that's another one that I always joke that he should be a starter because he's got 5+ pitches. It's insane the bullpen that Preller put together.
Yeah, he's developed pitches fast. I mean, everybody has. I guess. All right. I guess you have another 2 minutes. I just want to ask you really quick about your pitch mix because it just that was a good segue to that. So, like, you come into pro ball, you're mainly known for your sinker and your changeup and command, basically,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now you have a much more diverse pitch mix, better four seam, as we've talked about. Obviously, a sweeper that didn't exist before. That's plus plus pitch. Do you feel like through that process of adding the pitches, the whole big league game reopened up for you? It's almost like so, like, for example, there's two Red Sox pitchers last year that came up, right? Peyton Tolley, he's got an incredible extension, incredible fastball, but at the moment, he's kind of a one-pitch pitcher. The other one was Connolly Early, who came up. He had been a starter at Virginia, and he had like a five-pitch mix, really good pitchability, but not a lot of velo. He added velo, and all of a sudden, he popped. So this is sort of like a backwards way of player development, and in a way, I kind of liken it to you. Like you were a college starter, command, pitchability, know-how, but needed to develop some more stuff, whether it's velo, whether it's more pitches. Soon as you did that, now you're a number one, number two starter. So it's like, do you expect with the modern tools and the modern training methods, am I onto something? Might we start seeing more guys who have pitchability, command already kind of native to them be drafted and then developed in a way to add on stuff? And that could be like a different roadmap to being an ace rather than just drafting the pure horsepower and then trying to teach them the pitch.
I totally agree with you because I think that although I probably cost myself a couple rounds in the draft by not throwing hard and not having the swing and miss stuff, I had to learn how to pitch with a sinker that was 88, 90 in college, a slider that was trash, a changeup that honestly was trash, but I could just command it. And so I was 12th round pick. But then as soon as I gained a little bit of velo in the minor leagues, once I put on some weight, now all of a sudden I could pitch with velo. And then I start talking to veterans like you and Kluber and seeing all the technology. And now all of a sudden I gain a sweeper. And it's like I can now pitch with stuff where my whole career was like, you got to get soft contact and command. And now I could blow doors sometimes. And then I can also get some swing and miss with this stuff. So it made it I never want to call it an easy game, but it made it a much easier game for me because I didn't have to be perfect with command because my velo wasn't there. And then I didn't have to be perfect with location of off-speed pitches with two strikes because I can sweep it 18 inches. And now it's like there are so many different aspects of the game that I can tap into. And it was a slow progression for me. I didn't gain my changeup never had elite movement until I'd say 23, but I could command it. My four seam got much better in 21. My sweeper got much better in 21. And that's when I begged Boone to be a starter because I felt like I had now had a 4-pitch mix.
Yeah, no, it's wild, and I can say it even if you won't because like I had pretty good years in like 2013, 2014, but my velocity was mid. I was a breaking ball pitcher with good moxie or whatever.
You're still like mid to upper 90s.
Not
Shut
not
up.
at not at that point. I mean, a little bit. But once we hit mid 2014, 2015, and now I am throwing mid to upper 90s. Yeah, I mean, it was way easier. I'm doing all the same stuff, but with 3 or 4 miles an hour, and it's like, okay, yeah. So for me, like velocity, like obviously can get your attention, and if it's the only thing you got, I don't think it gives you big league success, but it's a major force multiplier on all the other pitching abilities in my mind. So. Um,
Absolutely.
I don't know. I've definitely noticed that with you, and I was curious on your thoughts on that. And it's been a joy to watch you pitch, and looking forward to watching you out on the West Coast this year. The Padres are one of my nighttime teams. We get through the Yankees and the Mets over here, and then I switch on see what you guys are doing because I love to watch the great pitching. But I really appreciate you coming on, man, and I'll get you out of here and on to Pilates.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. Yep.
All right, you're the
I'll
best.
get rocked in Pilates.
All right, good luck. Good luck. Don't shake too hard, and we'll see you again soon.
I appreciate it, Otto.
All right, thanks,
I'll
buddy.
see you.
Have a good one. All right, that was Kinger. So we got him on. He's out of here now. And my dog is acting a fool right now. So let me just go take a quick break. We will be right back and we will talk about all the moves that happened yesterday. So give me a 2-second break and I will hop back. Big thanks to Michael King for coming on. All right, we're back. That was awesome with Kinger. I had to go give Daisy to Mama for a second because I think she has to pee or something. You know, still learning her cues, but she was acting up a little bit there. So we are back. We have a couple of moves to look over. Let's see what we got in the chat real quick. Thanks for coming on, Michael King. Phenomenal insight as usual. He was so good. I mean, man, he gave us some good info there, and he's been, he's such a inspiration, I'd say, to other pitchers because he continued to get better and he continues to get better through every year of his career. And that's the way you want it to be. You want to be on an upward trajectory right into free agency, right at the right moment, so that it's all worthwhile monetarily. You don't want to peak too early, folks. You don't want to be. You get no points for being the best player as a 12-year-old. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. All right, what else we got here? Otto, do you get free MLB TV with 10 plus years of service time? No. No. I did have a jailbroken version of it, though, for a while, and I think my account still might be that way, where I don't get blackouts. So that's pretty cool. I'll say that. The best episodes are always just listening to two dudes talk ball like they're in the clubhouse, and that's what we're trying to bring to you guys. That is what you are trying to bring to you guys. Yes, he has phenomenal teeth. I don't know if he's got new chompers or what, but they looked great. Those pearly whites. Ooh, Gabe Spire. I knew Griffin Jacks was already going to play Spire, so they add another lefty to Team USA. All right, before we get into the moves, what did this just do for USA? So Spire is added to it. So now he's the second lefty. Well, technically, where's Matt Boyd? He's not listed anymore. I know he's been somewhat confirmed. But yeah, they needed a lefty out there in the pen just to have it, for the lefties that can't hit lefties, so then he can go in there. Blue Jays are well represented. Mariners now getting in there. We loved Ernie Clement getting in there. I think that's a perfect bench player. And I think Dero and Michael Hill are doing a good job kind of rounding out this roster a little bit. Also, I don't know if you guys have seen, but this coaching staff is something else, by the way. Dero managing, my guy Andy Pettit, pitching coach, my other guy Matt Holliday, hitting coach, George Lombard, we know about his kids, huge prospects, first base coach, Dino, Abel, that's the Dodgers third base coach, he's the man. Rossi, that's Dero's guy, former Cub manager. Freddie Gonzalez, former Brave manager, McCann, and Michael Young, obviously both incredible studs. All right, that sounds good. So anyway, just wanted to really point out that they're loaded on the coaching staff too, not only on the playing side of things. All right, here we go. Let's get into our moves from yesterday. There's a couple moves from yesterday. So let's just try to remember what they were. Yes, there's a big trade of Weathers to the Yankees, and then we'll do Nolan to the Diamondbacks. So we'll start off with one of my very close friends, Mr. Arenado, to the Diamondbacks. Interesting, interesting that he ends up on the Diamondbacks. You know, having shared a spring training facility with them, Salt River Fields, over the years when we were members of the Rockies. Um, Now he goes over to the desert to be a D-back. Obviously, this is a buy low. There was a lot of money that was sent out, covered by the Cardinals to facilitate this trade. Cardinals looking to move on from Nolan and kind of start fresh over there. But this is an opportunity for the Diamondbacks to get better on the cheap. I think he's making $5 and $6 million for the next 2 years, so very affordable. And one thing about Nolan, he struggled the last few years, but this guy's working his absolute ass off right now, trying to figure it out. I think it's a good place to hit. I think he's going to benefit from the speed that's in front of him on the lineup. In the lineup, I know he's turning over every rock, trying to figure out how to, regain some of that athleticism, some of that rotational speed, some of the stuff that he had in spades as a younger player. And obviously, that's a challenge, being coming up on 35 here. But I put Nolan in. He's a sicko, he's in the same category as I was, or Charlie Blackmon, or Bregman, or a lot of guys who are just like baseball is kind of the air you breathe, right? And that's Nolan. So he's out there working hard, and I'm curious to watch how this lines up for the D-backs. This is the current lineup they're rolling out there: Perdomo, Marte, Carroll, which is as good as the top three as you'll find anywhere in baseball. I know there had been a lot of talk about Ketel Marte being traded, which never made a lot of sense for me if the team wanted to be good. Obviously, they'd be looking for a huge. Obviously, they're looking for a huge return if they were going to get a return. Daisy's over here barking up a storm. And obviously, they didn't feel like they were getting met with anything that made them move Ketel. So they're going to stick with him. That's the top three. Moreno is a good two-way guy at catcher. Pavin Smith, and then this bottom of the order is intriguing. You got some mixture of speed, you got some youth, and then you have the old dog Arenado. I'm very curious to see if Goldschmidt doesn't sign with this team now. Him and Nolan being tight from Cardinals and from even before that, and bring Paul back to the desert. I could definitely see it happening. There is a fit here. Right now, Pavin Smith at first, but there's a fit here for Goldie if they decide to go that route. We'll see. But they're going to try to compete. Merrill Kelly, Ryan Nelson, Erod, Fott, Soroka. In the bullpen, I mean, the bullpen could be a little more high-end. They did get Loaizaga. First time he hasn't been, a Yankee in a really long time. We know about his upside, just about keeping him healthy. He's almost never been healthy. Shit, I didn't mean to do that. I'm actually curious about just how little J-Lo has pitched over the years, because I think he's electric, one of the better guys that I've played with. I think, just the weak contact game is always going to be there with him with his combination of velocity and movement. But he's only had 1 year where he really stayed healthy the whole year, which was 21. He pitched 70 2/3 in 57 games to a 2.17. Just a phenomenal 9-win year out of the bullpen, 3.3 WAR. Just an incredible game, year from J-Lo. But since then, 48 innings, 17 innings, 4 innings, 29 innings. Just can't stay healthy. Definitely rooting for him to bounce back big, because this is a good piece, and maybe a change of scenery will help. Although, I don't know, seems to have had a lot of issues. I'm wondering if it's something to do with his stature, 5'11", 195, throwing 98, a lot of energy coming through that system very efficiently. Probably pretty hard to train for that. And I don't know what his off seasons look like in Nicaragua or whatever. So definitely rooting for Johnny Lasagna as an NRI. So I wanted to point that out real quick. Let's go look at Nolan for a second. Obviously, we know the numbers have been not what we're accustomed to seeing for the future Hall of Famer. Really, the last 2 seasons, a 719 OPS and 24, a 666 last year. And he was hurt quite a bit. He didn't really play a ton down the stretch. So, I mean, look, he's not a 666 OPS player. I think he runs into a similar issue that you see with a lot of right-handed hitters as they age. Number one is his power, and it's always been this way, is directly down the line, pull side. So here's an example of a Nolan home run from last year. And, this is how he gets them. He clipped me once, and it was him beating me to the spot and pulling a ball for a homer. This is basically how he's been from the beginning. He doesn't really hit home runs anywhere to the right of center field. That's not to say he can't get hits over there, but he has to be willing to take them. Over the years, and really last year's spray chart, not showing hardly anything to right field. But over the years, he's definitely been the type of guy where you could just pitch down and away, and if he's not in the right mindset, he's just gonna pull off everything, get himself out, pop up, ground out, and he doesn't have any speed, so that doesn't work to his advantage. But he needs to be able to take his singles to right in this lineup and where he's at physically. I think if he drove balls to right on a line, like low line drives to right for singles and doubles, he would buy himself some more pitches he could drive and pull. That's a good swing there where he stayed through the ball nicely, sending Nootbaar from first to third. Nato has the capability of doing both, but I think sometimes, he gets a little antsy waiting around for a ball to pull for a home run. And, teams just aren't really willing to give it to him. And you can go all the way back to, his prime years, and you're going to see almost all of these balls are to left field. This is 2015. This is 2016. All left field. Here's 2017. 2018. I do think 2018's got a little bit more. This is intriguing. This is an Oppo Taco from Nolan. I don't remember hardly any of these, so I'm curious to watch this. Oh, Archie Bradley. Interesting showdown. Yeah, it's at Coors. Am I out there somewhere? That's Boone Logan warming up. Bitter Boone. Anyway, just was curious to see that. But, he's mostly a pull side guy. Here's the recent years. 22, which was one of his best years. Everything pull side. 23, there is 2 to right center, but that's a very rare. And I think trying to achieve that, trying to go from good to great in terms of the power to all fields department might have hurt him a little bit. So it's singles to right, it's pull, and then earn yourself some pitches to pull. Defense, he's still great. So he's going to, always improve you on defense. He's basically the GOAT defender at third base, one of the most impressive players I've ever seen. And he continues to be. He's not winning Gold Gloves anymore, but he's a decidedly above average guy at third. So he'll help them defensively, which is important because they don't have really the pitching staff to punch out the world here. And their defense is going to have to be stout. But, they're hoping for a big bounce back on offense. Certainly, I'm rooting for it and hoping it happens. Going back the other direction for the Cardinals is a pitcher, Jack Martinez. I don't know if he ranked on any prospect list going into this season. Let me see if he pops up at all. He's not even a top 30 Cardinals prospect. So this was really just a salary dump, and then they really weren't willing to give up any type of big prospect, but they went ahead and picked this one out. He was like a 7th rounder in 23, something like that. So Cardinals, they achieved their goal. They got Nolan off the roster. They continue to retool. Let's see where the Cardinals are at right now in terms of major league, because I haven't thought about that in a while now that they've punted a lot of people off this roster. So Donovan in the leadoff spot, he's probably got a pretty good chance to get moved because he has real value, having a lot of control and being a hell of a player at 4 years service time. Ivan Herrera, Burleson, Nootbaar, Wynn, Gorman, Walker, Pajes, Scott. I mean, it's a lot of guys that have been there. Every single one of these guys is less than 5 years service time with varying degrees of upside, and floor. But, no, Goldie's long gone. Nolan's now gone. They traded Contreras away. They traded Sonny Gray away. This is the rotation now. Liberatore, May, Palante, McGreevy, Leahy. So it's a pretty young team. And honestly, I think the NL Central is a little more stout than it was before. But, Heim's looking to build some value from a lot of these guys, continue to pad that farm system, and then go from that way. Okay, thanks for the update. Martinez was their 8th round pick this year in 2025. Sorry about that. Thank you for that info on the bump baseball. So, I don't know, kind of a straightforward move. Not a whole lot to report there. Nolan goes over. We're hoping for a bounce back. It would be great for baseball to watch Nolan bounce back, and the Diamondbacks are taking that risk. I think the Red Sox might have been slightly in the mix, and maybe the Angels or some of the other teams. But I feel good about the Diamondbacks doing it, and I'm liking the fact that they're going to try to compete in that division. That makes that division a little more exciting, a little more competitive. Zach West received the baseball and coffee hat the other day along with some goodies. The quality of the hat and the packaging is insane. Yes, we've been working hard on the quality of the merch. I know it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but we are basically breaking even on all that. And the idea is just to put out a good product and make people, enjoy it. And, why give them something crappy to try to make a couple dollars? Not important. So glad you enjoyed that. Yeah, D-May did sign with the Cardinals. That's right. That's an interesting one because his upside is there, and so the Cardinals are going to try to develop that a little bit and see if they want him or whether they want to flip their newly fixed pitcher if they are able to accomplish that. Daisy, man, you're running around like crazy. Do you want me to hold you? All right. Have I interviewed D-Rob? D-Rob does absolutely no interviews. Good friend of mine. I mean, I text with him here and there. Don't know if he's still pitching or not. He might be a guy that at some point I could get on, but typically he's pretty quiet. He likes to disappear when baseball's not going on. Big time disappearance guy, Alabama guy. All right, let's get into the next trade, which was Ryan Weathers to the Yankees for 4 prospects. So Yankees finally make a move, and I have to say, I love this freaking move. This is such a sneaky move. Ryan Weathers. And, obviously the Yankees are in a situation where Cole and Rodon were not going to be back till, some point in the middle of the season. And then at that point, they're going to be cooking with gas if those guys come back in good form. Between Garrett, Max, and Carlos, that's as strong a top 3 as you're going to find. Schlittler continues to take the next steps. Got to love that. And now Ryan Weathers. Ryan Weathers, son of David Weathers, former Yankee, former longtime big leaguer. Wonder exactly how many games David Weathers pitched in. Let me take a quick detour to figure that out because he's up there in terms of all-time games, I want to say. Yeah, 964 games. So, I mean, he beat me by 200, which is crazy for me to even think about. Where's his leaderboard? I'm curious to see where he is all-time. He is 19th all-time in games pitched. 19th. Right ahead of Fernando Rodney, right behind Todd Jones. So anyway, the old man was a big leaguer, and the young man is now a Yankee. Original Padre ends up on the Marlins, had some injury issues over the years, but this guy has come back with much better stuff over the past 2 years. The velocity has jumped up. This is what he's working with in the little bit of action he had last year, averaging 97 on his 4-seam, 96.9 on the 4-seam, and then the changeup, 29% changeup, and to me, it's one of the better left-handed changeups in the game from a starter. Trying to go down that Scooble path. I'm going to have incredible velo with a really big separation changeup. The sweeper is like very hard. It's a hard sweeper with not as much break, but a lot of teams like that. Really, it's a fastball changeup game. Interesting on the fastball, though, he doesn't have much extension, so it plays down, only 5'9" extension. But I have to say, I like this move. His stuff has really ticked up the last few years. I can demonstrate that really quick just by looking at his stuff plus. Wow, Ryan Weathers the most looked at guy because there's a lot of Yankee fans out there. So look, just on Stuff Plus, he was decidedly below average as of 2 years ago, and now he's crept above average. 100 Stuff Plus in 24, 103 last year. More velocity, kind of add velocity to all his pitch types, and that's made things play better. And also this changeup has really become a plus pitch, in my opinion. It's only given a 107 Stuff grade here. But if you go watch some of these changeups from Ryan Weathers, I think you're going to be pretty impressed with the break on them. That's dirty. You got Iggy to chase below the zone. That's nasty. So that's one there. Let's see if we can find another one. Here's a fly out on a changeup from our friend Bades. Yeah, I'd say this is the number one concern has been the injury bug. Although, he just got over an injury. So there's probably some hope here that, maybe he's a little bit behind. Man, there was a really good punch out of Cronenworth in here if I could find it. Here's another changeup strikeout to Fitzgerald. And, I really like it. It's almost like the changeup never gets there. As I've mentioned, he is throwing quite hard now. So when you throw hard, you kind of get people to start their swings a little bit earlier. Here's an example of his 4-seam. Just 97 challenge heater to Justin Turner. So, you're combining 97 mile an hour fastball velocity with really incredible separation on that changeup. The other pitches are just okay. But I think you get him with that Yankees, infrastructure, coaching staff. They'll probably be able to optimize a couple of his pitches in a better way. And, it's easy to forget, but he's only 26. This guy got to the big leagues extremely young. He's just getting into his prime where the brain is starting to link up with the physical ability. And I think this was a sneaky good move by the Yankees. I think he holds down the fort until the big dogs get back, and there's a chance he pops in the meantime. Not only has the stuff gotten better, the results have gotten better the last 2 years. 3.63 and 16 starts in 24, and last year he only got into 8 games, but the results were fine there too. And I think he might be ready to take off. So this is an interesting move by the Yankees. On the flip side, the Marlins acquired a few prospects. So you're thinking, like, what's the downside for the Yankees with this? He's not making a lot of money. They have plenty of control over him. He's filling a huge need for them at the moment. The downside would be if one of these guys, pops as a big time guy. Dylan Lewis probably being the biggest prospect that headed over there from the Yanks. 2020 player in Division One. Yeah, I mean, last year he had an interesting season in terms of power. 22 home runs, 21 doubles. Did strike out a lot. Also stole bases. So he's a pretty dynamic athlete. Um, Here are the scouting grades: 45 hit, 55 power, 55 run, 45 field, 50 fielding, 45 overall. So, I mean, there's a chance this guy could be a solid regular. If he pops beyond that, well, now all of a sudden you're looking at the Marlins, maybe having won the trade. And they have 4 lottery tickets. Obviously, the top 2 are the more high end guys. I'm trying to think who else was in this trade. I had it listed the other day. Well, not the other day, a second ago. Dylan Lewis, Brendan Jones, Dylan Jasso, and Juan Matthews. So Brendan Jones was another. Did he make it? Yep, here he is. Here's the outfielder, Brendan Jones. This guy also came over from the Yankees. So he's a 50 hit grade, 45 power grade, 65 run, 50 arm, fielding 55. So this is a speed defense prospect, contact prospect, 12th rounder out of the Big 12. Very patient. Very uncanny base stealing. So this is a speed prospect that the Marlins are bringing in. He did hit 11 home runs, 20 doubles, and stole 51 bases last year. So that's pretty good. So yeah, I mean, in a way, I feel like this is a pretty good haul. They get 4 shots at, developing basically a above average regular or an all-star, and then you can really feel good about winning. And they're not in a winning moment right now. I don't know. It's kind of weird though. They signed Fairbanks. They've made some progress. They had a decent season last year, but then they've now traded 2 of their starters off their rotation in Cabrera and now Weathers. So I don't know. I find it a little interesting that they did this, but I guess they really liked the package they got back. So it took 4 guys. I think the Yankees were trying to line up with them with Cabrera as well. So there was an awful lot of overlap there. But they were able to work something out. And typically the Yankees don't miss with trades like this too often. They tend to look at a guy that they think they can make a little bit better, and then they are able to actually execute that over the past few years. So I'm pretty high on Weathers. This is a great opportunity for him. Think about it. 5 days ago, he was on the Marlins, getting ready to go through a very tough NL East with not a lot of firepower backing him up. And now he's on the Yankees, and he's got a chance to, establish himself in this rotation. If he can prove that he's a better pitcher than like a Will Warren or Luis Heel, and he can totally take off. This is a good question. What is the Marlins pitching prospect situation? Great question, Maya. Thank you for making sure that we look into that. Thomas White is the top left-handed pitching prospect in the game. So that's the number 1. He doesn't have much command, but he's got incredible stuff. We talked about him when we went over the prospects. Last 2 years, the results have been astonishing. 21 starts both years, sub 3 both years, on the strength of just ridiculous strikeout numbers. Last year, 145 Ks in 89 and 2/3 innings and a .92 whip, despite 51 walks. So the guy can't really throw strikes yet, but the stuff is incredible. So that's number 1. Another guy that's coming up pretty hot and heavy is Snelling. Snelling between AA and AAA was tremendous. He's definitely going to be in the mix this year. 1.27 ERA and 11 starts last year in AAA with a .99 whip. That's kind of beating the door down. Be kind of curious to watch a little bit of this guy. See if we can. There's also Max Meyer. Good call. We're just going to wait a second for this ad to end, and then we'll run this We'll run this chat. Yeah, I see the Max Meyer stuff too. I love the slider. So we'll get into him in a minute as I wait for this ad to go away. Build Ford tough. All right, so let's rewind. This is an 8 strikeout outing from that Snelling, who's the number 2 pitching prospect. And they got to feel good about their prospects if they're going to eject Weathers and Cabrera off the list. I don't know why this other team has so many lefties in the lineup. Oh, this is versus the Yankees. Oh, it looks like that fastball will play for sure. Pretty good breaking ball. Oh, there's Spencer Jones. We know he punches out or homers pretty much. All right, so that was a quick little look at Mr. Robbie Snelling. What does it say about him in terms of his grades? 55 slider, 55 changeup, 55 slider, 55 fastball, 50 changeup, 50 control. That's a very good prospect. Original sandwich pick in 2022 of the Padres. He got traded in the Tanner Scott trade. So great identification by the Marlins to pry him free. 92, 95. Topped out at 95 last year. Best pitch is a low 80s slurve. So, yeah, I mean, Marlins definitely feel good about those two. After that, there's Kevin DeFrank. This guy's all the way back in rookie ball, though. And then Noble Meyer, who's another guy that I've heard of. This was a first rounder, 10th overall. So they have some guys coming. The Marlins always seem to develop pitchers pretty well, to be honest with you. I know that's nothing to hang your hat on because things change all the time. Who's in player development changes all the time. The kids you're developing changes all the time. But for what it's worth, they have had really good success over the years. So good question there. All right, Max Meyer is another one that I was just asked about. I don't know what his injury status is. I know he got hurt. I believe he had a Tommy John, correct? He's penciled in there in the rotation right now. Sandy, Yuri, Max Meyer, Braxton Garrett, Jansen Junk. You could do worse than this, even with getting rid of those 2 guys who are very good in terms of Weathers and Cabrera. This is still a pretty good 5. Junk last year was great, really low walk rate. Meyer's kind of electric. It's a 2-pitch, mostly approach. When we saw him, big time tunneler, big time swing and miss chase guy. I think the next step for him is figuring out how to control his contact. I mean, geez, first percentile average exit velo. So he's gotten hit hard, but he's still creating a ton of whiff and chase. Actually, his walk rate's not bad. Ground ball rate's not bad. So there's a lot of stuff to work with here. Obviously, he's got good velocity. He's 95 on the fastball. He's almost 90 on that slider, and it's a heck of a slider. This bullet slider is what he's known for. Here's a called strike 3 to Brandon Lau from Max Meyer. That was 92. So it's kind of a cutter slider, but that's been the pitch. That's the pitch that got him drafted. That's the pitch that has punched so many tickets over the years, whether it's in the minors or in the early going of the majors. But I do think that he's a little bit of that modern, I'm going to just let it eat and try to strike everybody out for a little bit of time. And he doesn't really have kind of the game to figure out how to go deep in the game. Like, he's not great with controlling his contact. That would be the next step for him. But yeah, Max Meyer is another intriguing arm. He also got up there extremely fast. And then injuries kind of halted him. He had TJ and has battled some other injuries. Labrum tear ended last year. So I tore my labrum back in probably earlier, but it was noticed back in 2010. And it's funny because originally, I think I've told the story before, but Dr. George Paletta with the Cardinals, who was the Cardinals team doctor, wanted me to get surgery on. And I went and did a little rudimentary Google searching and found out that that was a very bad idea. Only a few really big success stories at that time. I think Kurt Schilling was one of them. Ultimately, I went and got a second opinion, decided to rehab, and was fine. Never had a shoulder issue again. But yeah, labrum pain, like that front of the shoulder pain from having like a hole in your labrum there is pretty excruciating. And when you're going through it, it feels like you have to put a fire out after every throw you make. So hopefully he got that straightened out. Tommy John, I have no doubt, it's a hinge joint. You do the protocol right. You stay focused. You don't get ahead of yourself. Generally, you'll come back from that. And he's only 26. But the labrum surgery can be tough if he ended up doing a surgery. That can be a tough thing to deal with. Golden Gopher legend, best since Glenn Perkins. Yeah, you don't hear a lot about the University of Minnesota baseball pipeline to the big leagues. That's for sure. You hear a lot more about the hockey pipeline probably to the NHL. But I don't know. How do you guys feel about this Max Meyer move? I think the Yankees might still be in the hunt for even more starting. But for me, I think like this was just a savvy move. They weren't like swayed by public sentiment to just toss a whole bunch of money necessarily at a big time starter, but they found a way with a quantity of prospects to prime a Ryan Weathers free, and he should do a great job holding down the fort until the big dogs come back. And if he pops, then maybe they have a five that they could really be proud of. Might have missed it, but Weathers throws the changeup left on left a decent amount. Interesting stuff. Yeah, actually, last night I was texting with Alex Fast over at MLB. He's an Orioles fan. He did not like this trade because he likes Weathers quite a bit. He noted that Colton Cowser will 100% punch out on a left on left changeup from Ryan Weathers the first time he faces him. So I was like, damn, like that's a very specific prediction. But then I went and looked a little bit at Colton Cowser and I said, oh, I think you're right, actually. He's gonna not see that. And it's cool that he goes left on left. That stuff's not really taboo anymore. And Weathers has a hell of a changeup. I had one of him punching out Cronenworth not too long ago that I thought was really great. But haven't been able to pull that up yet. I guess here's the other Golden Gopher baseball players: Dave Winfield, Paul Molitor, both Hall of Famers, both Hall of Famers. So to your point, that's a pretty good squad right there. All right, let's get into the chat a little bit because I'm not sure what direction to go in here for the last little bit of this show today. If Tucker goes to the Mets, is the trio of Tucker, Soto, Lindor the best trio in MLB? Well, I mean, what about Mookie, Shohei, Freddie? That's a pretty good trio, but I would say it's up there. It's up there. I would say got to be in the top 2 or 3. I'm trying to think of other trios. I guess the one I just talked about, Carroll, Perdomo, Marte, was pretty damn strong. I don't know. A lot of teams have a pretty good big 3, but yeah, it would be up there for sure. I'm very curious what happens with Tucker. I mean, we don't do the rumors, as we've said many times, but this $50 million a year offer is intriguing. Unsure what the opt-out situation on any of these offers are, or if what the long-term offers will be, but we'll definitely see. We'll definitely have to wait and see. Ronnie Mauricio will be a weather strikeout victim, so he struggles with the changeups too. Wants to hit that fastball. Doesn't like the combio. I could see that. 3 guesses where he went to school. Ooh, let me think. Probably Minnesota. That would be my guess, Eric. Any chance the Yankees flip anyone from the rotation now? Maybe. I don't know what the value is on Heel anymore. A lot of his key metrics, backed up a lot last year. He was one of the hardest guys to hit in the early going of his career, but a lot of his key metrics have backed up, so I'm not sure how people would feel about him. I think Will Warren acquitted himself fine last year. He wasn't dominant or anything, but he had some good moments. It was a good growing year. I'm very curious to watch Will this year. I don't think they'll deal any of their big dogs. They do have some depth here because you got to remember they also have guys like Yarborough and Blackburn that can make starts as well. So maybe. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, this Bellinger thing seems to really be holding up their offensive decisions. Seems like they're pretty dead set as Bellinger is their target. And if they get him, then they're probably happy offensively. But if they don't get him, I don't know where they necessarily pivot or what happens. So yeah, maybe at that point you use some of your starter depth to make a move. But no way of knowing that. We're not in that. Yeah, Rodon currently got some bone spurs or something removed in the old elbow there, so he's supposed to be making his comeback a little bit into the season, and they'll try to ease him back in. But he was phenomenal last year. I mean, this is a pretty good 3 guys I heard. I also forgot about Clark. Clark, I just saw on Instagram, actually, that Clark's been back throwing too. So Clark Schmidt, another guy coming back into the fold. Like I mentioned, they do have quite a bit of pitching depth. And even in their prospects, you go look at like the Yankees prospects right now. LaGrange is coming. He's got great stuff, as does Elmer Rodriguez, who's been up already a little bit. They have some guys. Ben Hess has been pretty, I feel like his numbers have been pretty good. Yeah, 22 starts in the minors. He's been good. Chase Hampton was hurt, but he had been on the big league radar before that. So they have some guys. They've done a very nice job over there. So I think that's why they were able to make some of these moves. I mean, they traded 4 minor league pieces, and they do have some options if they want to trade out of that depth, which is interesting. Yeah, there's the answer. All right, what else is there? What else is there today? What did I miss off of trade rumors? Anything? Well, let me do a little refresh, see if anything new happened. No. Okay. Everything else that's happened, we've already kind of talked about it. I know there's a lot of smoke right now with Tucker and Bichette. You know, there's been almost no smoke with Framber or Suarez, guys like that. So I don't know. It's very hard to predict, but seems to be one move at a time. It's starting to feel like Tucker might be next, based off of the online chatter, but I have no real way of acknowledging that or knowing that. So if you guys want to toss anything in the chat, any other topics, feel free. Feel free. Rumor is it Ottavino coach for Italy WBC? No, I might be playing. If I'm going to be a part of that federation this year, I'll be pitching. Cervelli's the manager. I feel like he's a great fit for a manager. So, you know, maybe in the future, but we'll see. Do you think Andrew McCutchen will get another year from the Pirates or someone else? I'm surprised he hasn't signed yet. I thought he was definitely going to keep going. Pirate legend. They didn't just like they didn't sign him already, did they? I don't think so. So you know, he actually played well. I mean, he really did. 700 OPS and it's not bad. I mean, the expected numbers were better, but they're trying to be a little more dynamic this year. So I'm not sure if they're gonna necessarily bring him back in a starting role. I mean, 551 plate appearances. I don't think you'll see that again if he plays. So. Options for the Red Sox at third base. Let's take a look at that. So Suarez jumps out as a possible pivot. I was thinking about this a little bit more. I'm not sure what the I'm not 100% sure what the price is going to end up being, but I do think fit-wise, you know, you need a right-handed power bat who can hit some home runs. He makes sense in Fenway. I know that Bregman was the main target, and now they seem to be pivoting to Bichette. But if they could get Suarez on like a 2-year deal, I wouldn't mind that. He really was unbelievable last year. He did hit 49 home runs. Let's not forget that, and that's not the first time. 30 the year prior, 49 last year, and look at that spray chart all to left. So if you're a Red Sox fan, you could do a lot worse than throwing Eugenio in there. Pull side tanks. On the surface, I think he fits pretty well. I also have another sneaky idea. You might have to hear me out, and I don't know if the other team would be intrigued in this. But my sneaky idea would be to trade for this guy, Royce Lewis. I know he stunk last year, but to me, he's a top 20 player of the game when he's healthy and when he's right. Now, granted, he's been hurt an awful lot. But this would be a guy I might want to knock on the door a little bit. Hey, you want to sell low on your former first overall pick? They probably would say no, and I don't know what it would take. But Royce Lewis would be a guy I'd be very intrigued by. I've been in love with Royce for a long time. I think he's a great hitter. I think he's a really good player all around. Great head on his shoulders. I know he struggled last year, but this would be the type of guy that I think might be worth it with the huge upside, depending on what the ask would be. So, you know, Suarez and this would be another move that I would think about kicking the tires on. I thought Ketel Marte was a huge possibility, but it seems like, you know, they need to be overwhelmed for that, and the Diamondbacks are trying to win a little bit. So, you know, I think that's a little bit of the calculus. Let me get rid of this guest screen real quick. We don't need that. Yeah, so this is one of the arguments on Gino Suarez, the defensive piece. Yeah, it's not good. But I think you look at the Red Sox team; they have pretty good defense, I'd say, all around. I mean, Meyer back in the fold's an excellent defender. Rafaela in the outfield, Abreu in the outfield, Narvaez catching. This is a third base position. I know that you're going to notice it a lot with Bregman not being there, but I think if there's one spot they could maybe live without a little bit of defensive value, it would be at third. He's 8th percentile, so that's not good. But I think you're buying in a little bit more to the Red Sox lineup could just really use a right-handed power injection. I know they have Contreras, but looking at this lineup right here, Anthony, Story, Duran, Contreras, Abreu, Narvaez, Meyer, Romy, and Rafaela. If you could play Marcelo at second, then you could start a Gino, or really Royce Lewis would be my pick if you could pry him free. At third, I think that makes a lot of sense. It frees Romy up to do a little bit more of a platooning situation. He can pinch hit for some of these lefties versus a tough lefty. So, there's a few things. There's definitely a few things that I like about adding a Suarez to the lineup, or certainly a righty with power. And I think if you were going to not have defense, I wouldn't mind it as much at third, considering the context of the rest of their defensive ability. But I'm not in their front office, and I don't know what their models are saying. So they might value the defense a little bit higher. Also, I totally agree with this comment. Staying healthy is a skill. I mean, look, I'm the one who believes in that the most. I think I stayed healthy because I learned how. I think that's a huge thing. But Royce Lewis, get him with some new trainers. I've talked a little bit about how the Red Sox have one of the best medical staffs, maybe the best medical staff I've ever been around. Maybe a change of scenery, change of approach. Get him on the field a little bit more. Not to say you can even trade for him, but for me, that's an idea I had the other day while driving. I said, "Oh, what about Royce Lewis? Twins might be willing to make a move in the right package." So that was something that I thought about a little bit. Yeah, he is a crazy good player. I didn't mean to downplay that, but he's very good. I mean, there was at times where I thought he was. I mean, we played them a couple years ago, and we could not get him out. And it was just a little burst of time where he was in the lineup, Buxton was in the lineup, Correa was in the lineup, and I was like, man, they have some very high-end dudes in Buxton and Lewis. Lewis might be the highest end of them all if he's right. So, you know. Suarez not great at third, but he did hit 49 home runs. Let's not forget that. Agree with that. And then the Red Sox could have to move an outfielder. This is a good point. Just looking at the Red Sox, we talked about this before, but this outfield's extremely crowded. If Cedon stays in center, then you have Cedon, Duran, and Abreu, and you also have a situation with Roman, because Roman is honestly the guy who really needs to play every day. That's kind of really hurting Duran. Duran seems like a luxury at this point. And then on top of that, you have Yoshida you have to figure out. And Eaton can play outfield. So they have a little bit too much outfield. I agree. They could potentially, Duran could be a piece they could use. I mean, they're not going to trade Roman, but yeah, they could clear something out of the outfield for sure. I think Story's still good at short, correct? I mean, I'd have to see, my bad. I'd have to see how, I mean, Meyer would be a tremendous shortstop right now, but I don't think Story is bad at short at all. Let's see. Wow. -9. That really cratered fast. I wonder if how much of it is throwing. Yeah, 24, he was above average. 23, way above average. 22. Yeah, so I've always looked at Story as an elite defender. I guess last year that backed up quite a bit. Maybe it's the first year back. I wouldn't give up on him there yet. He's such a good athlete. The sprint speed hasn't declined. There's no reason to believe that would be locked down, like and set in stone, that he can never recover. But yeah, that's a little concerning. So good point out there by Olioe. I don't know how to say that, but very, very good idea. What made the Sox staff the best? I think it's a combination of know-how, but also manpower. They had literally like 7 or 8 trainers on the full-time staff. Most teams only have like 3 or 4. They had 2 massage therapists. They had, acupuncturists, PTs, chiros, all sorts of different people that were available to you. Obviously, the full power of all the hospitals and medical community that's in Boston, which is very, very strong. I just thought they had a lot of manpower, a lot of know-how. The training room's not a taboo place with the Red Sox. It's a place where you should be in there every day getting ready for the game, and they are totally with that program. And I think that's a good place to be overall. And I just love the amount of guys they have. I worked with Brandon Henry. He was a tremendous trainer for me. kept me healthy all the way through 21, and was just a great ally. So I'm a big believer in what they do. The Red Sox need more everyday guys. Platoons are great, over 162, but in October you need dudes. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you do. I just think it's just such a shame what happened with this situation. Now, reading into it a little bit more, the no trade clause seems to have been probably the biggest roadmap between Bregman staying and not staying. And the fact that they have some organizational policy now prohibiting that kind of costs them basically their honorary captain. So they have to pick up the pieces a little bit in the clubhouse. AC is one of the best at creating culture, so they'll be fine. I think Crochet and Story take the baton there, but man, definitely unfortunate that they can't just keep rolling with Bregman with some of the other moves they made, because I think they've made some strides, but now they're really taking 2 steps back without Alex, and they have to figure that out. Wow, Joe Ryan and Lewis in a package. Now you'd have to really give up some things to get both. So obviously for the Red Sox that'd be great, but would the Twins even do that? Who knows? If the Twins could keep Joe Ryan, make a couple other moves, I think they could still compete in the Central. Not sure they have enough moves yet. What did we say about? I mean, we haven't really previewed any of the teams yet, but we looked at like their needs, and we were kind of curious what was going on with the Twinkies. They fired Rocco. They have Shelton in there now. This is the lineup at the moment: Buxton, Keishel, Bell. Yeah, Bell was a signing. That's right. Wallner, Jeffers, Larnick, Royce, Brooksley, Austin Martin. I mean, plenty of guys with big time draft pedigree. Look at this: first round, second round, first round, second round, first. All in that lineup. Now, not a lot of these guys have really taken the leap at all, but there's some pieces there. So I don't hate what you said there. I do think the pitching has a lot to be leaves a lot to be desired. I don't mind the top 3. Obviously, I like Pablo. I like Joe. Bailey Ober's a very solid pitcher. Richardson kind of been up and down the past few years, and then Zebby Matthews. Like, it's okay, but it's not a division winning rotation, and they've really hurt their bullpen over the past couple years, losing Duran, losing Jax, losing Varland. So I'm sure they'll develop them pretty fast, pretty back, because there's always another stockpile of relievers right around the corner to be back in MLB. But that's a big loss for them, and I think that hurts them in the near term right now. Like, you're trying to compete, you just don't have as strong of a pitching staff as you're used to having. And the offense is good, but again, not great. It's more potential than real ability at the moment. So I don't know. We'll see. What's your overall goal in baseball at this point? I don't know. I have a bunch of ambitions. I have a bunch of dreams. I'd love to manage. I'd love to GM. I'd love to team president. I'd love to do this show for 10 years and grow this show really big, but also do broadcasting, which is what I'll be looking like I'll be doing this year. Some Yes Network pre and post, some ESPN national stuff. I'm trying to figure out exactly how all that's going to line up, but I definitely, have big ambitions in the game. Don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. Within, like leaving baseball behind. That will never happen. Sorry about that. But I guess I did get it right. All right, perfect. And I'm happy I've met you before. I know we don't do rumors, but there's some smoke on the Rockies shopping, or at least listening on Doyle. Yeah, Brenton Doyle, we've talked about him before. Incredible defender, incredible athlete. I mean, just look at these metrics right here. These four right here: range, arm value, arm strength, sprint speed. He's manning the biggest outfield in the game, doing it really well. When he hits the ball, he crushes it. 2024, he had a pretty nice year: 23 home runs, 30 bags. Granted, it's at Coors, but I think ultimately there's a lot of upside with this guy. He's got to be one of the best athletes in the game all around in terms of a speed power profile. A lot of holes in his game too, but this is a very enticing player statcast wise, tools wise, and be curious to see what the Rockies could get back for Brenton Doyle. So interesting there from Philip. Seems dumb to let him go over an NTC. I totally agree. I think, look, the guy wanted to be there. He's got two young kids. He's seen how the front office has changed leadership very rapidly over the past 2 decades. You go from Sherrington to Dombrowski to Heim to Breslow now. So, there's always risk there that a new regime comes in and then they want to ship you out. And if you have no say over that matter, then that can be very disruptive. And I think Bregman wanted to set some roots down. Chicago was the one willing to do that. Boston wasn't, and I think that's why you're seeing so much of frustration from the Red Sox fans. This was a very signable contract for Boston. They're obviously a huge market, and I think that's where the criticism comes. We'll see how they pivot out of it. We'll see how they pivot out of it. They reserve the right to do other stuff, and so we'll see. The Red Sox would have needed to do even more to be favorites in the AL East. I would agree with that. I don't think that would have made them favorites, but they have had a little momentum. The Roman Anthony coming up and being a potential, top of the scale player, and we don't know, he might arrive ahead of schedule. Like that could be as soon as this year. That's exciting. That's a major level up when you have a player on a big market team that's already locked up to an extension, has cost certainty, and then you can go ahead and add to that. That's a good place to be, but now they have to kind of figure out where they're going to pivot out of that in a very competitive AL East this year. Do you think 2026 Dodgers could beat the early 2000s Yankees? Well, the early 2000s Yankees didn't really win much. It was really the late 90s Yankees into 2000. I mean, that was such a complete team. Obviously, the game's played a lot differently now. It's impossible to compare the eras. I do feel like they're different eras. The electricity on that Dodger pitching staff is going to play out in any era, right? You throw Yamamoto, Snell, Glasnow, even against the 98 Yankees, I think that's a tough matchup at the plate. But those Yankees teams were so consistent, so loaded. They passed the baton so well. They did the fundamental things so well. They just knew how to win. So even though I can't really compare it, it would be intriguing to watch it. I'd be curious to watch it. It's like the Warriors team, the 2019 or whatever Warriors team that was 16, I don't know, versus like the one of the big time Bulls teams. It would have been interesting. So always between eras, when you see two teams that are super dominant, there's a tendency to want to compare them, but we'll never get that. We'll never get that option. All right, still can't believe the Twins traded Varland, 5 years of control. What did they get back for him? They get any big pieces back from the Jays? Trying to remember what they might have got from the Jays for him. But yeah, Varland, big time pitcher out of the pen. A lot of people have asked me this. I've never played out of the park. I know a lot of people have. Heard good things, and maybe at some point. But we got a lot of out of the park baseball nerds in the Discord all over the place. Never going to happen. But don't know why there's no rumors about the Rockies signing Bo Bichette. His dad was great there, and Bo would rake at Coors Field. I think this comes down to just like winning cycles. Not ready to push all in with their next franchise player yet. They got to kind of get out from under Chris Bryant. Rockies generally have 1 to 2 franchise players that they can pay big at a time, and I think they're probably staying disciplined within that right now. I do think Bo could hit for an insane average there. But I have no idea how the higher-ups in the Rockies are thinking about that and how they're profiling certain guys. It would be cool, though. It would be cute. I mean, they already have Ethan Holiday, son of Matt, who was a Rocky, coming up in their system. And if you had Bo in there, obviously son of Dante, who was a Rocky and a Rockies hitting coach when I was there. And in fact, Bo spent a lot of time around Coors Field when I was there. Got to know him as a young kid. That would be very cool and very romantic, and that would be something we would love about baseball. But no way of knowing if they're even looking into him. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to spend really big right now when they're pretty much guaranteed to finish in last this year again. So that would be part of the thing. I've been wondering this myself a little bit about the Mets. This is a Mets question any of the younger guys Stearns would have an interest working out a pre-arb extension with. I don't know what his history is with the pre-arb extensions. We've seen the Brewers do it with Chorio, but that's post David Stearns. Trying to think of other examples. It's kind of hard to come up with. He was definitely a part of a front office with Milwaukee that just didn't do a lot of money spending in general, and I think that's where his skill set really is top tier, is picking up value that's laying around, seeing the game from a 3D view, understanding the value of defense, and a whole bunch of other things, and winning on the margins. I think in terms of like extensions and stuff, we just haven't seen a David Stearns-led front office do that yet. So not to say he wouldn't, and they have some good candidates within the Mets. I mean, McClain would be interesting. I mean, clearly we believe in him a lot. And then, it seems like they have a lot of belief in Benj. But again, I don't know. Yeah, here's Actions NYC has my numbers correct. 2015 Warriors and the 95-96 Bulls. You could even throw in those Shaq Lakers teams in there as well, because those were very intriguing teams that also had a three-peat. And Shaq was, arguably the most dominant player I've ever watched. So in basketball, those would be three. But they're all different sort of eras, so different styles of the game. So be curious to watch. And that's what we're talking about in baseball. Are there any lesser-known foreign player markets that may have potential, like the Japanese KBO leagues? So the Mexican league is like kind of in a battle to be as good as KBO. I mentioned with the contraction of the U.S. minor leagues, there's been a lot less minor league free agent contracts to go around. A lot of those players that are good players end up in Mexico, so that Mexican league gets strengthened. And so Mexico would be my first answer. I know that in Taiwan, there's some leagues that are gaining some more traction with imports, and there's a few things here and there. But overall, no. I mean, Japan and Korea are pretty much at the forefront of this right now. Oh yeah, Alan Roden and Kendry Rojas were the two trade pieces back from the Blue Jays for Varland. So I still feel like that was a great move for the Jays. Jays number 6 prospect Kendrys Rojas and outfielder Alan Rowan. Can we look at what was this would be on the Twins now? Twins top prospect Kendry Rojas, left-handed pitcher. Man, last year he was at 5 levels. He went from rookie A, double A, triple A. Results weren't good at the very top, but let's look at the grades. 55 slider, 55 fastball, 45 changeup, 50 control, 50 overall. He's had some injuries, but he is 94, 95, touching 97 as a lefty. So this could be a high-end benefit for them in the future. But I mean, Varland really impacted that Jays team last year, so I was pretty excited for them. Is there any hope for the Rays this year? I would say yes, because they're the Rays, and they've actually made some sneaky little moves here, and they have a fun little team. And you never know with McClanahan coming back. Let me go take a look at the Rays offense. I mean, let's look at their team a little bit, as they always continue to just reimagine it all the time. But they're always been a tough team to play. So they're not out of it. I just think that AL East is so strong this year that the bar is a little higher. I don't think they're going to be in play to win the division, but they have a chance to make it interesting in the wild card. So Richie Palacios, former Berkeley Carroll Lion, the only other one I know of in the big leagues ever. That's my high school. Yandy Diaz, Jonathan Aranda Jr., Cam Minero, Josh Lowe, Cedric Mullins, Taylor Walsh, Chandler Simpson, Nick Fortes. I think this puppy is annoyed with me or something. You good? You want to go into your kennel? Do you have to go potty or something? Are you hungry? I don't know. Something's going on with her. You good? You want me? Oh, you're barking at a balloon? You think that's a person? It's not a person. All right, hold on. Let me get my blanket ready for this pup. There we go. Here, why don't you just lay on your blankie, okay? Go take a little nap. Say hi to the people. Hello. And you just chill with Dad, all right? You just chill with Dad. Junior Cameronero, Josh Lowe, Cedric Mullins, which was a sneaky little pickup. See, I see the Rays continue to be sneaky. Taylor Walls, great defender. Chandler Simpson, they have a lot of speed on this team. And Fortes, who was a Marlin. Jake Fraley, Johnny DeLuca. I mean, they have like pieces, but they never have like the star players, right? Except for Junior Caminero, who he might be the piece that really has them taking off. This is the intriguing thing, is this rotation. Rasmussen, I love. Pepio was great last year. McClanahan is a true ace if he's right, although we haven't seen much of him lately. Matsey was a sneaky pickup. Steven Matz, he's been good lately. And then Joe Boyle, we know about his stuff. Hasn't really figured it out yet, but we know his stuff. Bullpen, I never worry about the Rays bullpen. They figure it out every single year. Griffin Jacks was a great pickup. I'm surprised he's not starting yet, but after he gets back from Team USA, he's likely to be the closer or the setup man on this squad. I can't even talk about Wander Franco. They would be a lot better off if they had him still playing, obviously. Brett Wisely was just traded, I think, or something over there. Carson Williams is a top prospect that's on the way. Jacob Melton they got from Houston. So they're ready to reload this roster. But it's not fully imagined yet. So I would say yes, there's hope, but probably not for the division. Just to maybe be a factor in the wild card like they typically do. Okay, I need to put this dog down. She's being crazy. So bear with me for 2 minutes while I go see who's out there, and then I'll come right back. All right, I'm just gonna throw on the screen for a sec. All right. We're back. All right. We shedded the dog. We'll do another 15, 20 minutes ish, and then we'll go from there. All right. Rockies are usually good at keeping a player the fans want to root for. Bryant just didn't step into Arenado's shoes. Yeah, see, I do believe that's an overall, Rockies strategy in general is to have a marquee name. Tulo, Helton, Walker, Story, Cargo, and then obviously Chris Bryant was the next attempt at that hasn't gone well because of health reasons. So yeah, at some point, they're going to have a star. They'd love to homegrow him, but at some point they're going to have another star player. Just usually they would do it in a sequence that would make sense with their winning window. Here we go. Which other pitchers other than Strider got pre-arb extensions? Isn't it usually a position player? It is. It is typically a position player. But there's been some examples with pitchers over the years. There's been a few over the years. Shin-Soo Choo, Chan-Ho Park, Hyunjin Ryu. Who's the Korea GOAT? It's probably Shin-Soo Choo or Hyunjin Ryu for me. Chan-Ho was good, but I love those other guys. I love Hyunjin Ryu. I thought he was incredible to watch. Master out there, spinning it, command. He even kind of hit pretty good when he got chances to hit. I love watching Ryu pitch. As a Jays fan, so glad we dodged the universe where the Sox hang on to Devers and Bregman and trade for Marte. Those three plus Anthony would have been a fun top of the order. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, like Devers and Bregman, you can say what you want. Those are two pretty damn good players. At one point, they had both of them last year. Now they're both gone. They're definitely testing their system and their metrics now and their models. So we're going to see how this all plays out. Never count out Tampa Bay's devil magic. Yeah. They like Walls because of his defense. Incredible defender. And, at the Trop, I think you play a lot of small ball, a lot of tight games at the Trop. And, like, defense on that turf can be really a really, really good asset to have. Yeah, I guess that did fizzle out. Not sure what Griffin would want to do. He's got such a good arsenal. Let me take a quick look at Griffin Jacks while we're here. I mentioned this is one of my favorite guys. He's got such good stuff. And he had such a weird year last year. I mean, you punch out 99 out of the pen, but you have a 4.23. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But he's got a huge arsenal. He's not even really a fastball pitcher anymore. Sweeper, changeup are the top two, then four-seam sinker, cutter. With that type of arsenal, you would think, he could maybe transition to starter. And if I was him, he'd be thinking about, how much more money the starters get paid and the lifestyle that they lead. But he also could have his sights set on closer. You could do really well closing. And he seems to have found his groove in terms of staying healthy and being effective. I mean, 71 games, 72 games, 73 games back-to-back years is very impressive. Very impressive. And I think his numbers last year were a fluke. So I expect him to dominate this year for the Rays. I would have been tempted maybe to move him back to a starter, but I don't know. Sometimes if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? That's what they say. And it's certainly not broke for him out of the bullpen, although last year was a little bit of a weird year. No one reloads while remaining competitive like the Rays. And then Jay Farrell immediately pops back with depends on the definition of competitive. And I would agree with that. Definitely the definitions matter here because they're always in the mix and they've made the playoffs a lot. They even went to the World Series that one year. What was that? '08. But yeah, it's not like they have rings, championship rings. And I often think about this a little bit in the context of baseball, where sometimes a guy will get so much credit for winning or doing well with a small market team. But it's like you're just getting credit for like making the dance. It's not like they have like World Series rings. Like people in the Brewers front office are constantly getting praised, and I think they do a nice job. But it's not like they've won the World Series. You know, it's same with the Rays. So um, I don't know. It's intriguing that they get so much extra credit for dealing with a small market team, even though obviously the talent base that exists in baseball is a lot bigger than it ever has before. What else we got here? Ryu is also BFFs with Juan Uribe. I find that funny. The Sox want employees. That doesn't seem fun. I've heard Hyunjin Ryu was pretty lazy. That tracks, but he was effectively lazy, if that makes sense. I think he might have been a cigarette guy too, which you get bonus points for finding a way to be good in a if you're a cigarette guy and you're still good. With so many teams reluctant to give long-term deals, I'm betting teams will hold out until players agree to some type of cap. Man, it's going to be fascinating. I'm not involved in the convos anymore, but man, I'd be curious to see what the appetite is. Executive sub has switched around a little bit on the player side, so I don't know. Maybe the goalposts move a little bit, but I don't know. No insight on that. No insight on that. Who is someone you thought would have had a hard time having a career but did? I'll give you a good example of this of a player I played with in AAA, and I'm actually curious to see what I thought off of this. This is so funny because this guy turned out to be a tremendous player. But we played together a full year in AAA, and I honestly didn't see him as a great big league player. And it's this guy right here, Matt Carpenter. At the time I played with him in AAA, he had no power. He was a poor defender, and his whole game was walks. So it was contact and walks. So let me look at his minor league stats because I'm curious what I was judging that off of. That would have been in Memphis 2011. It's the year I played with him. He did have an 880 OPS, but at the time, my concern was 12 home runs in 130 games in the PCL, which is a place to rake. And I saw his value in this walk to strikeout ratio only. And at the time, I didn't think he was a very good defender. He had 84 walks and 68 strikeouts, which is great. He did hit 300. But I was comparing him to modern day third basemen at the time, which, I've just been playing with David Freese. Before that, he had more power. He was a better defender. So I said, man, if you don't have any pop at a corner position and you can't defend, then yeah, I like your contact game, but how does that translate in the major leagues to being a long-term pro? Well, I'll tell you how it translates. It's called he got a lot better really quickly after that. So to Matt's credit, he figured out how to maintain his on-base percentage, but increase his power and increase his defensive value over time. And you ended up with a freaking monster to the point where in 2013, he finished fourth in the MVP. Look at this season, 6.6 WAR, 55 freaking doubles, 392 on base, and for the career, 366 on base. So this is an example of a guy that I had my doubts about, and he ended up being not only a good player, but a great freaking player. 3-time All-Star, Cardinal legend, World Series champ, and almost MVP, top 5 in the MVP. Another example, and this is another crazy thing because I really only played with him for a little bit in the minor leagues, but I didn't see it at first with this guy who's also one of my good friends, and I actually became as impressed with him as I've ever been with anybody over time because his brain was his mind is so strong and so good, and he figured out how to constantly make adjustments and became a franchise player, $100 million guy, probably one of the smartest people I've ever played with. But at the time when we played in minor leagues, I didn't see it, and that's Chuck Nasty, Charlie Blackmon. We played together very briefly in 2012, and I know he was playing well, but at the time I didn't understand what I was watching. I was like, man, he's kind of slow. I also thought the same thing. He doesn't have a lot of power. I mean, 59 games with 5 home runs at that time in the PCL is kind of underwhelming. But I was wrong. He was actually fast. He was a great contact hitter, figured out how to hit for power, had a great head on his shoulders. So what's the common denominator between these two guys is they were able to level up the things that were their weaknesses. They were able to fix their weaknesses. So I like this question. Thanks a lot. And those are two examples of people that I completely misfired on earlier in my career, and I think has since informed, how I evaluate a little differently. If a guy has the skill set and an ability to constantly make himself better, um, then I start doubting those players a little bit less than what their raw packages of ability at the moment. I feel like certain guys can get better each and every year in Pro Bowl, and that's kind of the key. Like the person that gets best the longest has the longest career in baseball. So that's my example for that. Did you ever make it over to Moab when you were in Denver? Yes. I have been to Moab. I've been all through Utah, a whole bunch of cool places. I did like Antelope Canyon, and I mean, I've seen a lot of the outdoorsy stuff. Very into that, so that makes it good. All right, what else we got here? That's the entire Cleveland front office executive tree. The execs under Shapiro when he was there, and that tree is massive. You always hear about their execs for Pobo GM positions that come up with 0 rings. That's just been my argument. Like, maybe win a ring before we give you all the credit in the world that you can defeat everybody. It's like you get all this extra credit for pitching at Coors. Like I have all this extra B war for pitching at Coors, and I think I deserve some of it, but a lot of it's just inflated by perceived difficult degree of difficulty, and I think that's what happens a lot with these front offices. There's a perceived degree of difficulty when you're not in a big market, and that gives you a lot of extra credit, and then you get brought into a big market, and frankly, you got to win the damn thing at some point. So that's the biggest thing. Unless someone's OPS starts with a 1 in the PCL, I do not care. And that's the way I felt, Philip. And it was even worse probably when I played in it. Even like from a pitching standpoint, you could have like a 4.3 ERA and be on as a starter and be on the leaderboard. You could be a top 10 pitcher in the league with like a 4.3 ERA, which told you what the run scoring environment was like, especially in the western part of that league. Reno, Vegas, Colorado Springs, Albuquerque, just not good. Not good as a pitcher. Let's see. Colorado Springs would have been an unfun place to play. Colorado Springs was a weird town and a weird ballpark, but I mean, beautiful, beautiful drive, great air. Actually, higher than Coors though, like 6,500 elevation. So your pitches really did nothing. But I always enjoyed going there. I thought it was a pretty kind of a weird mountain town, but I don't know. I kind of liked it. This is what Arise needs to do. Keep adjusting. That's the key for any player. Keep getting better. Just keep getting better. That's the key to playing a long time. Don't don't think that you're stuck at the level you're at. You can always improve. Is there any way to evaluate that as an outsider? Or do you need to be in the clubhouse on a day-to-day basis to know how they take? I think it's hard to evaluate from the outside. You try to when you're vetting a player's personality, you try to talk to people that are close to them, whether it's clubbies, umpires who see a lot of things, coaches from the past, players from the past. But ultimately, yeah, it helps to have them in house. All right, here's a good question. On the 2018 Rockies, what impact did Wade Davis signing have on the pen in terms of leadership and experience? A ton. Wade's tremendous. First of all, Wade came off an incredible run with the Royals, as we all know about. He got the final out of the 2015 World Series. Greg Holland had been hurt, so he stepped into the closer role. He had been a setup before that, and honestly had one of the best stretches of pitching ever for the Royals. And then he was also a closer for the Cubs the year before he came to us after he got traded over there, and he was tremendous. Pitched multi innings in the playoffs, so he had ton of playoff know-how, ton of toughness. He had a starter background where he came up with some really good starters. Big Game James Shields, David Price, Jeff Neiman, tons of guys, Alex Cobb, tons of guys with the Rays who had a lot of know-how. So he had a lot of know-how. He brought that starter know-how to the pen. Frankly, he taught me a lot about how to evaluate hitters. He taught me a lot about one of his favorite things to do, which he would call switching the plate and then freezing the hitter. So basically, what he would do is say he was working away to a righty and he was working away, 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 away. Once he felt like he had thrown 3 pitches to one area and he had their attention over there, he would call that flooding an area. So that meant he flooded one part of the plate. The hitter's attention is now out over there. Then he would throw his patented front door cutter, where he would start it at the hip on the inside. The player would give up on it because his attention's all out here, and then it would swoop back to the plate. And he used to do a very fascinating thing to identify candidates for the front door cutter freeze. He would often watch, I'll go to the Dugout app just to show this, even though it's not going to be Wade pitching. I had Michael King pulled up earlier, but just for fun to see what I'm talking about. He would watch on the bat system, which is the old video system they had prior to these Dugout apps. He would watch guys like Gabriel Moreno or whoever take fastballs right here. The yellow's not working great because of these colors. He would have them take fastballs on the inside corner. And what he would look for is he would look for the one of two reactions. If the hitter's initial reaction was to swing and then get out of the way, he would say, oh, they want to offer on a lot of pitches inside. They like the ball starting close to them, so this is not a great candidate necessarily for the freeze cutter. But if he saw guys do this with their arms or turn away from the ball, then he was like, okay, anything that's kind of starting at them, especially when I haven't shown them that pitch in the previous 2 or 3, they're very likely to shut it down. They're not going to be able to initiate their swing if their first reaction is to get out of the way, whether it's by raising your arms or turning your back. So he would identify that by watching people make takes, and then he would say, this guy's a candidate, this guy's a candidate, this guy's a candidate, and then he would actually go out there and execute that shit in the game. So not only from the standpoint of setting up hitters, finishing hitters, having good game plans, he was also amazing in terms of the mental side of the game. He was the type of guy that would try all sorts of different things in his training to get himself out of his comfort zone, get his focus to where it needed to be. He taught me a lot about how to think about the game as a reliever under pressure. One thing that he would say is, I don't get too wrapped up in the score. I don't want to be influenced emotionally by the score of the game. I want to go out there and execute the same way no matter what. And yes, I will pitch the scoreboard when I'm playing. But in terms of he wouldn't get too invested in the score of the game too early. Like if it's a 3-run lead in the third, he's not like, oh boy, I'm definitely pitching today. And you start to get those emotions. He would say, I just stay detached from it as long as possible. And then when we get to the moment, I'll let those feelings come on and I can launch all that energy, all that nervous, anxious energy into the game in one flow. So that was another thing he taught me. Another thing he taught me is, and this is something he would say, is that, an important mental adjustment he made was, his saying was, it's all about the stories that you tell yourself. Other people are going to have narratives about you and your career, but it's all about what you're telling yourself. What's your story that you're writing for yourself? If your story is, I'm on the path to redemption, or I'm on the path to making a huge comeback, or if you buy into your setbacks are just a bump in the road to a greater success, and you don't get bogged down by people poo-pooing you when you're struggling. If you tell yourself those positive thoughts and you're nice to yourself and you create your own story in your head, you can manifest that. You can bring that out of yourself. So I thought that was incredible. Really great advice, and I started giving that advice out later over time because I just thought it was just really good. Like, you take control over your own narratives in your mind. And while we're here, we might as well look at one of the most dominant stretches that has ever happened in baseball. 2014, really through 2016. I could just go 2015 because he had a 1 ERA in 2014 and a .94 in 2015, but a 1.87 is no slouch. This is his last 3 years in Kansas City. Averaged over 3 WAR per year, which is absurd. That's a 1.18 in 185 games. Like what? 0.89 whip. Not walking a lot of guys, not giving up hits, almost no home runs. He gave up 3 home runs in this stretch. 3 home runs in 185 games is a freaking joke. And I know that that's when the fences were moved back and now they're moving them in at Kauffman. But 3 home runs is a joke. In fact, in 2014, he gave up no home runs. I don't know anybody's going through a whole year and pitched that many innings to give up no home runs. So that's incredible. Plus, his postseason was very dominant. This is one of my favorite pitchers of all time. I was very inspired by him as a teammate. The 2015 run, no runs allowed in the postseason. 4 innings in the DS in 3 games, nada. 2 games in the CS, nada. And 3 games in the World Series. I mean, in his World Series stats versus the Mets that year, 4 innings, 3 hits, 0 walks, 8 punchies for a negative .87 whip. So put some respect on my guy Wade Davis's name as one of the best stretches you've ever seen. Anyway, great question about Wade, and I'm glad I got to shout him out and some of the things he taught me there. All right, let me keep going. Wow. We're going to have to get off here in a minute, but we have some really good stuff here in the chat. I remember Tulo said the difference between a major leaguer and a minor leaguer is ability to deal with failure. Yeah, I mean, that's probably an oversimplification, but the faster that feedback loop is, the better. We heard King talk about it today on the stream when we had Kinger on here for the conversation. You know, it really helped him when he was bummed out, and Joe Musgrove came right up and they immediately diagnosed his start, and then he was able to get his brain, out of the doldrums, out of like the pity party, and into, okay, I have a plan for tomorrow and a way to get better. So it's like the quicker you can, you're going to feel pain, you're going to feel sorrow, you're going to be depressed when you struggle. That's natural, but you can't just wallow in it. You got to use it as motivation for the next day to get better. And I think that's what dealing with failure really is all about. Answer to this question is no. I think he was talking about one player in specifically here. And overall, I don't think the comments were necessarily valid. I don't think it was a lazy team. But I mean, I'm not in the hitting group, so. Let's see here. What do you think of Stearns heavily scouting in Japan and yet not showing any interest in Okamoto, Murakami, and Imai? Well, Okamoto and Murakami aren't really great fits with the Mets. They have a lot of young infielders. I don't think they're great fits with the Mets. Okamoto might have been at first base, but they went with the Polanco route. Imai, I thought the Mets were going to be in play for sure. I thought he would have been a good fit. But I don't have any idea. I don't have any idea what he thought. And honestly, we don't know how these guys are going to adjust either. I'm high on all three, especially Imai, but we'll have to watch it play out. When people say playoff know-how, what does that mean on a micro level? I guess what it means is ability to keep everything the same and not get too freaked out by the added adrenaline and the added eyeballs and the added pressure that's part of it. Like, I think it's a misnomer that people say, oh, it's just the same game, like don't do anything different. I think there are players that can raise their ability, like in the big moments, and I think that's incredible. I even talked about it on Mason Miller earlier. But at the same time, there's an art form and an ability, a superpower to raise your ability, but also not get distracted by the consequences of failing. And I think if you've been through playoffs, usually after you have your first playoff failure and you realize it's not the end of the world, you usually bounce back better from that. And that can rub off on other guys. Like, hey man, just like approach it the same, but definitely like allow the adrenaline to take you to where it needs to take you. I heard Scherzer talk about this past offseason. Harness those feelings. Let those feelings guide you. So it's a combination of knowing how to stay calm, stay focused, stay on task, but also allowing that extra hormonal energy that you don't, frankly, have a lot in the regular season to kind of take your stuff up and not throw you off in that way. So that would be my opinion. Man, we have so many good questions in the chat. I'm probably not going to be able to get to all of them. If you were starting your career over, is there anything you would do differently to try to remain a starter? Yeah, I probably wouldn't have listened to a lot of the stuff the Cardinals coaches told me about my delivery. I probably would have, not wasted 2 years trying to make a delivery change that I didn't necessarily need to make. I think I would have learned how to toggle both of my pitches a little better. I think I would have pitched inside the lefties a little more. I mean, there's a lot of things I could have done, but the biggest thing was getting the lefties out. I always felt like I was good for endurance. I had a lot of know-how, but if you did put 8 or 9 lefties in there against me, I lacked the pitching stuff to get those guys out at the time. So I think if I could have trained my stuff a little bit better rather than focused on mechanics and stuff and things like that, I think it might have suited me a little earlier. Do we have a lefty in the pen with the Rockies in 2018? I'm pretty sure Boone Logan. Boone Logan. Let me see if I can find our roster from that year. I mean, maybe even Michael Dunn as well. Mike Dunn, he was a pretty good lefty at times for us. Let's see, 2018 Rockies. Here's the pitchers. So in the pen, yeah, Jake McGee. Jake McGee's a lefty. I mean, he's a one-pitch lefty. Chris Russin was a good lefty for us. And then, yeah, there he is, Mike Dunn. So I guess Boone was gone already? Yeah, I guess Booner was gone already. He must have only been there through 17. But Mike Dunn, I mean, he didn't have a good year this year, but he was a good pitcher for us previous years. Chris Russin also struggled this year, but he was incredible in 17. So we had a couple. They all struggled, but we definitely had some lefties. But this group right here, this top three, was pretty exciting. Wade, myself, and Scott Oberg. Oberg was tremendous this season, especially down the stretch. But really, we just followed Wade's lead for the most part, and that was a very, very fun team to be a part of. Actually, a very good Rockies team. You look at the offense that year. Not to get too far outside of ourselves, but LeMahieu was great. Story was tremendous. Nolan was tremendous. Charlie was fine. Carlos was fine. Like, we had a good lineup. David Dahl, young Ryan McMahon. We had Matt Holliday on the bench at the very end. Like, we had a very, very, very fun team that year. All right, let's see what else we got here. What's just stopping for a pitcher to incorporate a 40-mile-per-hour eephus? Yeah, I think it's just hard to do. I think it's a little harder to throw it for a strike, and it is a little bit embarrassing if you can't throw it over the plate. So you're trying something that's almost impossible to do. You know, slow your arm down from like a 95-mile-an-hour arm speed to a 40-mile-an-hour arm speed. Not that easy. Not that easy. Some of the best, this is going back, so now I'm just catching up in the chat to some of the Wade stuff. Some of the best advice I ever got, we have to question the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. Agreed, Maya. Well put. Well put. Wade Davis, 2015, still gives me nightmares. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mets fans, but I wanted to point that out. Question the source to story, then you question the source to the source. I don't know what's going on there. Have I ever been starstruck by a player? Not a baseball player. Well, maybe Ken Griffey Jr. a little bit. He was coach on the last WBC team. I was a little afraid to talk to him, maybe Ken Griffey Jr. He only had one pitch, but boy, what a pitch it was. 90% fastball. It was incredible. It was incredible. And yeah, Chris Russin, a lot of people forget, but he was tremendous in 2017, and he was the Justin Turner killer with the quick pitches. JT hated that shit, so it was great. Yep, Sungwon Oh was tremendous with us too. Loved him. I've been trying to get Sungwon Oh on the. I would love to get him on here. He had some great stories. I've been talking to his former translator, so we'll see. Yeah, same sort of concept of players who don't want to shoot the underhand, the Rick Barry underhand free throw, which had incredible success. You haven't seen anybody take that up. Have I ever spoken with Wakefield? No. I was not a knuckleball type of guy, but I think they're very cool. But, you know. Ado, do you remember making Mookie look silly as he ever has, striking him out with that sweeper? Yeah, we can go chase that down real quick on the Dugout app. This was an interesting at bat, and then we'll probably wrap it up just for fun. We'll go back for vanity. So this was, you know what this was? You know what this was? This was actually, you want to talk about pressure? You want to talk about pressure I felt in my career? This was some freaking pressure. 2022, Mets, Dodgers. And if you remember, this was Timmy Trumpet night. We were getting to the point where Timmy Trumpet couldn't stand around anymore. Couldn't stick around any longer, and we were waiting for a save situation for Edwin to get in there so Timmy Trumpet could do his live Trumpets performance. And I had to pitch this game in a 1-run lead. So I got Gallo, Bellinger, and then here's the Mookie at-bat. So let's watch the Mookie at-bat. This is honestly one of my best stretches of pitching ever, too. So this is fun. Little backdoor sinker at 95.5. Start off the at-bat. And then there's my typical slider to the backstop. To negative 22.7 on that. Yeah, this is the game that we won 2-1, and this is the Timmy Trumpet game. Edwin came in and shut it down in the ninth, and Timmy did his thing. But I felt a lot of pressure in this game, because if I blow this game, Timmy Trumpet can't do his thing, and the entire crowd is going to be let down. So you see the adjustment on this after I threw a slider to the backstop. This one I start more at Mookie, and I lock him up for a strike, and now we're in the driver's seat, and I try to finish him off. First, I try for my backdoor sinker, don't get it. Slider again. Chopped foul. Let's try it again with the sinker. That was a perfect one. You see the emergency hack from Mook there. See, and I could still throw 95. These game plans worked quite well. Here's a 4-seam. I said, all right, I'll try to get above the barrel with the 4-seam. He did a great job working it to 3-2, but he couldn't lay off the slide ball way outside, and we'll take the punch out. And this kid was jacked up, which fired me up. But I did my job, and Edwin got to come in and do his thing. So that was big. And I remember, like I said, I felt a lot of pressure that night. Yeah, Jake did start this game, Maya. Great DeGrom start, shredding everybody. I believe the only home run he gave up was this one to Mookie. I don't know why I'm showing the one hit he gave up, but Mookie did clip him. And I remember he said, I should have got that slider a little bit more outside because he was such a perfectionist out there. But hell of a start by DeGrom as usual. And then, yes, the trumpets played. And unfortunately, he's a Dodger, and that sucks ass for everybody. But that was a fun memory. Fun memory. Thanks for bringing that up. Thank you for bringing that up. I just think he thought I was going to throw a strike there. So he kind of made a little bit of a premature anticipation. All right, that's it. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go order lunch and figure out what the rest of this day has for me. This has been a pretty fun show. Thanks for hanging out with me for over 2 hours. Big thanks to Michael King. I thought he was great. Just a lot of fun. Friday show is not going to be the same usual time. I have to do a workshop at Yankee Stadium. It's myself, Jason Zillow, who's the PR guy, PR director of media, whatever, and Aaron Boone. We're going to be talking to some kids about working in communications departments and the role of the media and stuff like that, especially in the big city. So I'm part of that panel, which I think will be a good opportunity for those kids. So we'll probably do Friday baseball after dark. But stay tuned. I will definitely post that on, I'll make a post on the channel. So you guys will get to see that, and I'll make sure that everybody knows on the Discord as well. So I appreciate you guys so much. I love doing this show. I'm glad some of you love this show, and we'll keep on trucking. Thanks so much, and I'll see you guys on Friday at some point. Keep an eye out for the time announcement on that and for the upcoming stream when I announce that. All right. See you guys later. Adios.